إعلان مهم.
重要提示
Important announcement.
Message important.
Важное объявление.
Anuncio importante.
يرجى من المتحدثين الكرام إلقاء بياناتهم بسرعة معقولة لضمان ترجمة فورية وافية وعالية الجودة.
为了帮助口译准确完整传递发言信息，请代表发言时语速不要过快。
Speakers are kindly reminded to deliver their statements at a reasonable pace to ensure complete and quality interpretation.
Il est rappelé aux orateurs qu'ils doivent présenter leur déclaration à un rythme raisonnable afin de garantir une interprétation complète et de qualité.
Напоминаем ораторам, что для обеспечения полного и качественного устного перевода необходимо поступать в умеренном темпе.
Se ruega a los oradores que pronuncien sus declaraciones a un ritmo razonable para garantizar una interpretación íntegra y de calidad.
C'est bon. Excellences, distingués collègues, je déclare ouverte la 5e séance de la 58e session du Conseil des droits de l'homme. Excellences, distingués collègues, nous allons maintenant poursuivre avec le segment de haut niveau. J'ai l'honneur de donner la parole à Son Excellence Monsieur Mihai Popsoy, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Moldova. Excellency, you have the floor.
President, Mr. High Commissioner, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, this session of Human Rights Council is taking place in a rapidly evolving international context. While we continue to face appalling conflicts in Sudan and recent military hostilities in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we also see positive signs in other regions. We sincerely hope that the negotiated ceasefire in Gaza will hold, leading to sustainable peace based on long-term two-state solution. Dear colleagues, these days we also mark 3 years since Russia unleashed its unprovoked, unjust war of aggression against Ukraine. This war, conducted by a nuclear power and a permanent member of the UN Security Council, has already caused destruction and suffering, which will take generations to repair. Moldova stands in solidarity with Ukraine to resist the Russian aggression. My country continues to provide support to Ukrainian people, hosting more than 135,000 refugees, mostly women and children, providing humanitarian aid, helping with the transit of goods. As many as 70,000 Ukrainians are registered under temporary protection mechanism established in Moldova 2 years ago, benefiting from access to healthcare services, employment, education, including in their mother tongue. As discussions on peace are starting strongly, we believe that sustainable and comprehensive solution to this conflict entails the UN Security Charter being paramount, that it should bring justice through robust accountability mechanism for war crimes, prevent any new war through robust security guarantees, and open the way for the reconstruction of Ukraine. No discussion on Ukraine without Ukraine. Mr. President, as a candidate country on its EU accession path, the Republic of Moldova is strengthening the rule of law, fighting against corruption, and promoting respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. In line with our international commitments and policy objectives, we will spare no effort to ensure the implementation of human rights standards. Equally, as a candidate country for the seat in the Human Rights Council for 27-29, Moldova will promote human rights as a foundation of a fair and just world, regardless of geographical area. Mr. President, the Republic of Moldova regularly updates the Council on human rights situation in the breakaway Transnistrian region of my country. This year, there is no exception. The situation continues to be dire, as the freedom of expression, of assembly, and of the press are still suppressed. Any dissenting voice or any show of opposition by local activists may result in a prison term on extremist charges, and we continue to receive notification in this regard. Criminal liability still stands for those who are daring to seek justice in international courts, such as the European Court of Human Rights. We welcome the recent release of a number of persons held behind bars in the Transnistrian region on political grounds. We call on the release of the remaining ones and hope this practice will not be repeated again. Let me also refer to the situation in the 8 latent script schools located in the region, which have been subject to constant and various forms of pressure and intimidation throughout the years. We urge the Russian Federation abide by international obligations and execute without further delay the European Court of Human Rights judgment in cases originating from the Transnistrian region of Moldova and pay the just satisfactions awarded by the court. As the Republic of Moldova takes over the presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe between November 25 and May 26, the execution of judgments will be one of our priorities. We'll also pay special attention to the fight against discrimination, disinformation, propaganda, strengthening local democracy, the protection of children and women's rights. Mr. President, Moldova will stay engaged in common efforts for ensuring the Council remains effective. We adhere also to the calls for strengthening the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights by ensuring sustainable, predictable, and adequate funding. In the year of the 80th anniversary of the foundation of the UN, the role of the Office of the Human Rights Council remains pivotal. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. I now give the floor to His Excellency Archbishop Paul Gallagher, Secretary for Relations with State of the Holy See. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, this year, as the world grapples with the tragedy of numerous conflicts, global crises, and ongoing violations of human rights, Pope Francis has declared a Jubilee Year of Hope to be celebrated by the Catholic Church. It is the desire of the Holy See that the Human Rights Council will respond holistically and constructively to humanity's need for tangible signs of hope in the times we live in. Mr. President, the right to life is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and is a prerequisite for the enjoyment of all other human rights. As Pope Francis affirms, all life must be protected at every moment from conception to natural death, because no child is a mistake or guilty of existing, just as no elderly or sick person may be deprived of hope and discarded. Furthermore, the Holy See reiterates its call for the universal abolition of the death penalty. The demographic crisis calls for a renewed appreciation of the gift of life, motherhood, and of the family. The Holy See hopes that the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Conference will be an occasion to celebrate the many gifts that women uniquely possess and to recognise and support the vocation of motherhood. Human rights are universal and apply to all, including the estimated 125 million people forcibly displaced. Pope Francis has stated that these people cannot be treated like objects to be moved about. They have dignity and resources that they can offer to others. It is only by viewing things in this perspective that progress can be made in confronting a phenomenon that requires the contribution of all countries, not least through the creation of safe, regular pathways. It is worrying that almost half of the world's population lives in countries that spend more on debt repayment than on health or education. Therefore, I reiterate the call of Pope Francis to the international community to work towards forgiving financial debt as a matter of justice, not merely as a question of generosity. Moreover, there is also a need to recognise and address the ecological debt that exists between the global north and the global south. Furthermore, attempts to restrict religious freedom are an obstacle to lasting peace and integral development. Yet across the world, around 380 million Christians continue to suffer high levels of persecution and discrimination for their faith. This Council can play a crucial role in combating discrimination against Christians, Jews, Muslims, and members of other religions, and in ensuring religious freedom. Mr. President, the world is facing pressing issues which require a strong multilateralism that respects the equal sovereignty of states, uses a common language, and does not seek to manipulate multilateral documents by changing the meaning of terms or unilaterally reinterpreting the content of human rights treaties in order to advance divisive ideologies that trample on the values and beliefs of peoples. This is a form of ideological colonialization that fractures relations between states and compromises the integrity of multilateral institutions, while diverting precious time, energy and attention away from the issues that really matter. In a world in need of tangible signs of hope, the diplomacy of hope called for by Pope Francis could help this Council play a key role in healing the wounds of humanity and in giving multilateralism the new vitality it needs to address the complexities of our times. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you, His Excellency. Now I have the honor to give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Maria Gabriela Sommerfeld-Rosero, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Human Mobility of Ecuador. Her Excellency, you have the floor by video.
El Ecuador ha mantenido un compromiso con la defensa, promoción y protección de los derechos humanos, tanto en el sistema universal como en el ámbito regional. Mi país ha promovido el fortalecimiento del multilateralismo y los principios de cooperación y solidaridad internacionales que conduzcan el avance de la protección, promoción de los derechos humanos en el mundo. Mi país, Ecuador, es el primer Estado del mundo en haber ratificado los 27 instrumentos internacionales jurídicamente vinculantes en el área de derechos humanos y adecúa sus normas y su actuación a esos principios. Desde el 2003, Ecuador mantiene la invitación abierta a la visita de todos los titulares del mandato de procedimientos especiales de la ONU a visitar el país. Impulsamos el cumplimiento de los compromisos con el órgano de tratados de derechos humanos de las Naciones Unidas y el examen periódico universal. No obstante, el Ecuador y la región enfrentan una grave crisis de violencia, fruto de actuaciones de grupos vinculados con la delincuencia organizada transnacional que atentan contra la seguridad ciudadana y la soberanía del Estado y la convivencia pacífica de este. Me refiero en particular al alarmante aumento de la actividad transnacional de las organizaciones criminales. Estas redes ilícitas se han convertido en un cáncer que corroe el tejido social de nuestros países, alimentando la corrupción y generando violencia. En este sentido, hemos propuesto ideas visionarias para contrarrestar las fuerzas que socavan la convivencia pacífica entre las naciones. En diciembre del 2023, como presidente del Consejo de Seguridad, el Ecuador reafirmó su compromiso con la construcción de un mundo más justo, solidario e inclusivo. Creemos firmemente que todos los países, independientemente de su tamaño o poderío, tienen un papel que desempeñar en la promoción de la paz y la seguridad internacional. Esta visión integral de la paz y la seguridad debe ser el faro que guíe nuestras acciones. No podemos permitir que el crimen transnacional siga prosperando a expensas de la estabilidad y el bienestar de nuestras naciones y sus ciudadanos. Tenemos la convicción de que la paz y la seguridad son elementos que conducen al desarrollo. Por tanto, eliminar la violencia y luchar contra la delincuencia organizada transnacional son objetivos que busca alcanzar el gobierno nacional. Por ello, es menester contar con la cooperación internacional. Seguiremos participando de manera constructiva en el Consejo de Derechos Humanos, ejerciendo un papel de liderazgo en diferentes resoluciones e iniciativas. Hemos presentado también nuestra candidatura para ser miembro del Consejo de Derechos Humanos durante el periodo 2027 a 2029. En el pasado, la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas nos escogió en 3 ocasiones para integrar el Consejo de Derechos Humanos y varios expertos de origen ecuatoriano han ocupado dignidades en diferentes mecanismos de los sistemas universales e interamericano de derechos humanos. En este marco, Ecuador continuará adoptando las medidas necesarias para favorecer la promoción de los derechos humanos, el empoderamiento de las mujeres, las niñas y prevenir y erradicar la discriminación y violencia, así como promover la igualdad de género. Seguiremos creando políticas públicas y programas para el ejercicio efectivo de los derechos de las niñas, niños, adolescentes, pueblos indígenas, afroecuatorianos, personas adultas mayores, personas con discapacidad y otras en situación de vulnerabilidad en consonancia con las convenciones internacionales de las que es parte y su normativa interna. Además, Ecuador participa activamente en la implementación de los pactos mundiales sobre los refugiados para una migración segura y ordenada, regular, con un enfoque transversal de derechos humanos. Hemos reformado la Ley Orgánica de Movilidad Humana a fin de reforzar la aplicación efectiva del mandato constitucional de igualdad y no discriminación, incluyendo un marco de prevención y protección para las víctimas de trata de personas y tráfico ilícito de migrantes. Seguiremos abogando para que la comunidad internacional otorgue atención adecuada al vínculo entre derechos humanos y medio ambiente. En ese marco, el país lleva adelante acciones para hacer frente al cambio climático, el cual constituye una amenaza para el disfrute de los derechos humanos. Para concluir, Deseo reiterar que Ecuador continuará trabajando en los desafíos pendientes y en iniciativas para mejorar los marcos normativos y fortalecer las capacidades institucionales con un enfoque de derechos humanos y perspectivas de género, discapacidad y edad, con estricto apego a los principios de igualdad y no discriminación, y con el objetivo de preservar y reforzar en el país la paz, la seguridad y su desarrollo. Creemos en la cooperación de todos los actores y la solidaridad como herramientas fundamentales para la prevención de las violaciones de los derechos humanos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Excellency. Now I have the honor to give the floor to Mr. George Danilov Georgiev, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bulgaria. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I am honored to address the principal international body responsible for the promotion and protection of human rights worldwide, the Human Rights Council. Allow me to extend my warmest congratulations to His Excellency the Ambassador Jörg Lauber of Switzerland on the occasion of his election as President of the Human Rights Council for 2025 and to express our full support for his efforts to advance dialogue, cooperation and the use of digital technologies. I wish him and the Bureau of the Human Rights Council every success in their work. I would like to underline how important it is to ensure the independence, integrity and sustainability of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, as well as of the Office of Human Rights Council mechanisms and the UN treaty bodies. Bulgaria remains steadfast in its support for their efforts to uphold and promote human rights. Mr. President, just yesterday the world marked 3 years since the Russian Federation launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We reiterate our strongest condemnation of all violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law committed in the course of Russia's aggression. Those violations demand full accountability. In this regard, we welcome the Human Rights Council's continued engagement on the human rights situation in Ukraine, which will stay high on our agenda during this session as well. We fully support the resolution extending the mandate of the Independent International Commission in Inquiry, which will be presented by Ukraine. In January, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, which solemnly reminded to us all about the need to combat intolerance, discrimination and hate, and to prevent war crimes and crimes against humanity. Ensuring accountability for the serious human rights violations and breaches of international humanitarian law is crucial for the prevention of future crimes and atrocities. Bulgaria remains firmly committed to combating impunity and promoting international criminal justice. We emphasize the important role of the International Criminal Court to end impunity, uphold the rule of law, and guarantee respect for the international law and human rights. Mr. President, in these turbulent times marked by devastating conflicts, rising inquiries, and powerful emerging technologies, the international rules-based order with human rights at its core remains vital for the security, stability and prosperity of the humankind. The promotion, protection and fulfillment of human rights are a fundamental prerequisite of the achievement of freedom, dignity, equality, democracy, rule of law, peace and sustainable development. These values and principles are at the heart of Bulgaria's foreign policy priorities. As a member of the Human Rights Council, our country underscores the central role of this body within the UN system. At a time when multilateralism is under increasing pressure and the Council's functioning faces new challenges, we believe it is imperative to offer a collective response. The upcoming 2026 review of the Human Rights Council's status presents an excellent opportunity to reaffirm the Council's mandate, highlight its pivotal role in the international system and demonstrate the enduring value of multilateralism. Bulgaria will continue to support the efforts to promote the culture of peace, tolerance and understanding. We regard as indispensable the role of the Human Rights Council for the achievement of human rights-based sustainable development goals. Bulgaria allocates equal attention to the need to ensure adequate reactions of the Council to gross violations and abuses of human rights and to exercise the Council's prevention functions. We seek to contribute to all endeavours to combat disinformation while strengthening media freedom and ensuring the safety of journalists. This year we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, a landmark achievement in the advancement of women's rights and equality between women and men. We firmly believe that concrete policies aimed to empower women and girls are crucial in order to foster sustainable development, social justice and prosperity for all. In its national policies, Bulgaria continues to place a strong emphasis on the equality between women and men, as well as on the empowerment of women and girls. A visible testament to Bulgaria's commitment to this cause is the active participation of women in leadership roles across all sectors of society. Bulgaria remains dedicated to the advancement of the right to education for all children, motivated by the significant long-term benefits of early and pre-primary education for the cognitive and social development of children. We encourage all member states to engage constructively in the governmental working group exploring the possibility of an optional protocol to the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which aims to consolidate the access to free education. Bulgaria is fully committed to the promotion of the rights of persons with disabilities and continues to encourage and facilitate their integration in all spheres of public life. It is important also to address the impact of the artificial intelligence on human rights, especially with regard to children's rights, the media freedom and the fight against disinformation. In conclusion, I would like to highlight again the leadership of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and his dedicated staff in the tirelessly strive to advance the cause of human rights around the world at this precious time. Let me also reaffirm Bulgaria's unwavering commitment to the principles of international law, universal human rights, dialogue, and continued strengthening of multilateral cooperation. These are the foundations for the progress that humankind has achieved so far, and they will continue to be the basis of which we can build a more just, inclusive, prosperous, and sustainable future for all of us. Thank you for the kind attention.
I thank the Foreign Minister of Bulgaria for his statement. And now I give the floor to Mr. Jan Lipovsky, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Czechia, by video.
Mr. Secretary General, High Commissioner Turk, President Laube, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We are living in difficult times. Armed conflicts, coups, and the humanitarian crisis are increasing. Human rights are under threat. It's our shared duty to defend them. This year, the United Nations marked its 80th anniversary. This is a moment to reflect on its founding principles. Czechia is a strong supporter of the UN human rights system. We are proud to serve on the Human Rights Council for the 5th time. The Council plays a key role in addressing the human rights crisis. We will not stand aside. Protecting human rights requires a united effort. Governments, civil society, activists, journalists, and media workers all have a role to play. If we fail, the consequences will be more suffering, greater inequality, and increasing instability. Women and girls must have full protection, online and offline. The 30th anniversary of the Beijing Action Platform reminds us of the power of inclusion. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues to cause enormous human suffering. We must defend international law, condemn attacks on civilians, and hold Russia accountable for its crimes. Russia's occupation of Crimea and parts of Donbass has led to severe repressions. People face persecution and economic hardship. We call on Russia to release all political prisoners, including Irina Dalinovich and Emir Hussein Kuku. Czechia stands with Ukraine. We support its people at home and abroad. Our help is diplomatic, political, financial, material. Sanctions must continue. In Russia, human rights are also under attack. The Kremlin silences critics and crushes freedoms. People face unfair trials, long prison sentences and harsh reprisals. Russia must stop oppressing its own citizens and release all political prisoners. Human rights violation persists in many parts of the world. In Iran, Afghanistan, North Korea, Myanmar, Belarus, China, and other countries. People suffer daily. The world cannot look away. In Georgia, the right to peaceful assembly is under threat. Czechia will again present a resolution on this June. Our own history shows why these freedoms must be protected. Digital rights matters. The Human Rights Council must help shape global standards. We support stronger cooperation between human rights experts and technology specialists. Mr. President, Czechia will work with its partners to strengthen this council and uphold human rights worldwide. I thank you.
Merci à Son Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre des Affaires étrangères de la Tchéquie. Je donne la parole maintenant à Son Excellence, Monsieur Mateusz da Cecilia Phineas Ceizo, ministre de la Justice et des Affaires religieuses et constitutionnelles de Mozambique, par vidéo.
Embaixador Jag Leba, presidente da 58ª sessão do Conselho dos Direitos Humanos, excelentíssimo senhor Volker Turk, alto comissário das Nações Unidas para os Direitos Humanos, distintos representantes dos Estados-membros do Conselho dos Direitos Humanos, caros participantes, é com elevada honra que me dirijo a este Conselho em representação do Governo da República de Moçambique, num momento crucial para o nosso país e para a consolidação dos direitos humanos no mundo. A presente sessão do Conselho dos Direitos Humanos tem lugar num momento de muitos conflitos geopolíticos no mundo, caracterizados por violações graves dos direitos humanos. Nunca antes o mundo teve tantos conflitos ativos em simultâneo, como foi o caso em 2024. O terrorismo e o extremismo violento no nosso país continuam a representar um obstáculo ao gozo e proteção dos direitos fundamentais dos cidadãos. Estes conflitos violam o direito humano fundamental e produzem milhões de refugiados em todo o mundo. As mudanças climáticas têm estado na origem dos frequentes desastres naturais em Moçambique, caracterizados por ciclones tropicais cíclicos, provocando deslocamentos internos forçados das populações, com impacto negativo no gozo e respeito pelos direitos humanos. A assistência humanitária às populações afetadas, quer pelo terrorismo e extremismo violento em Cabo Delgado, quer pelas mudanças climáticas no centro e norte do país, tem contato com o apoio e solidariedade da comunidade internacional, que em parceria com o governo tem procurado mitigar os efeitos negativos. A este propósito, reiteramos o apelo à solidariedade internacional para a solução deste conflito e a proteção dos direitos das vítimas, especialmente mulheres e crianças. Excelências, o nosso país realizou, em outubro de 2024, mais um ciclo eleitoral, um marco significativo no fortalecimento da democracia moçambicana. No entanto, o período pós-eleitoral foi marcado por tensões sociais e manifestações populares que evidenciaram desafios na gestão da ordem pública, resultando, lamentavelmente, em episódios de violação dos direitos humanos. O governo de Moçambique condena veementemente quaisquer atos que comprometem o exercício dos direitos fundamentais, incluindo a liberdade de expressão e de manifestação. Reconhecemos que alguns excessos cometidos por elementos das forças de defesa e segurança durante as respostas às manifestações pós-eleitorais requerem uma análise profunda e medidas concretas para garantir que tais situações não se repitam. Contudo, o Estado moçambicano considera que o direito à manifestação pacífica deve ser exercido de forma responsável e dentro dos limites da lei, garantindo a convivência harmoniosa e a estabilidade nacional. Com a investidura do novo governo, reforçamos o nosso compromisso de implementar mecanismos de prevenção e resposta rápida às eventuais violações dos direitos humanos, assegurando que todas as instituições do Estado atuem dentro dos limites da lei e em estrita observância dos direitos fundamentais dos cidadãos. O Governo também está a reforçar os mecanismos de diálogo social para permitir que todas as vozes sejam ouvidas, garantindo que as manifestações pacíficas sejam respeitadas e protegidas, estando empenhado em implementar reformas estruturais no setor da justiça e em reforçar a capacidade das forças de defesa e segurança para atuarem em total respeito aos direitos humanos, em garantir investigações independentes e transparentes sobre as alegações de abuso e violência, assegurando justiça às vítimas. Neste desiderato, contamos com o apoio técnico deste órgão. Para terminar, reafirmamos o seu compromisso inabalável com a promoção, proteção e defesa dos direitos humanos, em consonância com os princípios consagrados na Declaração Universal dos Direitos Humanos, na Carta Africana dos Direitos do Homem e dos Povos e demais tratados internacionais em matéria dos direitos humanos de que é Estado parte. Agradecemos ao Conselho dos Direitos Humanos pelo seu trabalho incansável e reiterar a nossa disponibilidade em continuar a colaborar com este órgão e seus mecanismos na busca de soluções que beneficiem não apenas Moçambique, mas toda a comunidade global. Muito obrigado pela atenção dispensada.
Nous remercions Son Excellence, Monsieur le ministre de la Justice et des Affaires religieuses et constitutionnelles de Mozambique. Et nous voulons aussi, au nom des interprètes qui l'ont dit, n'avoir pas été possible pour eux de pouvoir interpréter le texte ou la déclaration de Son Excellence, Monsieur le ministre, à cause de la qualité de la vidéo. Nous poursuivons notre discussion et j'accorde maintenant la parole à Son Excellence, Monsieur Virgiba Era, ministre des Affaires étrangères de Sri Lanka. Excellence, vous avez la parole.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, at the elections held a few months ago, the people of Sri Lanka elected a new government with a strong mandate to direct the country towards economic, social, and political transformation. The results of these elections reflected a unified voice from people of all regions of the country, ethnicities, and religions. The current parliament is the most inclusive in our history, with a record number of women, including 2 from the Malayagat community and a visually impaired person. This inclusivity represents Sri Lanka's new path focused on upholding the rights of all its people, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, or other grounds. The economic crisis affected all segments of the population, especially the poorest and the most vulnerable. Having stabilized the economy, the government is currently in the process of laying the foundation toward economic transformation and greater economic democratization through fair distribution of opportunities. We are acutely aware of the continuing impact of the economic challenges on our people, particularly the most vulnerable, and decisive steps are being taken to advance their economic and social rights. In the national budget for 2025, we have committed to a series of measures to extend much-needed relief to the people, including increased allocation for social welfare and security. Special attention has been paid to improving the socio-economic conditions and address critical needs such as resettlement, housing, compensation, and infrastructure development in the northern and eastern provinces. Through the Clean Sri Lanka project launched by the President on 1st January, the government has introduced a new political culture and commitment to moral and ethical governance. The government will prioritize integrity and addressing issues of mismanagement and corruption. The fundamental and long-standing principles of democracy and freedom enshrined in our Constitution will be respected and safeguarded while protecting the human rights of all citizens. Administrative, political, and electoral processes will be activated towards this end. The government has pledged to take tangible steps to further advance national unity and reconciliation. The President has proposed to declare a Sri Lankan Day in line with our vision for a reconciled Sri Lanka and bridging gaps between communities. We will ensure that the domestic processes established to address remaining challenges from the conflict will continue their work in an independent and credible manner. Domestic institutions such as the Office on Missing Persons, Office for Reparations, and Office for National Unity and Reconciliation will be strengthened. The contours of a truth and reconciliation framework will be further discussed with the broadcast possible cross-section of stakeholders to ensure a process that has the confidence of all Sri Lankans. Our aim is to make the domestic mechanisms credible and sound within the constitutional framework. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission will be empowered to investigate acts of violence that give rise to tensions within Sri Lankan society. The government is fully cognizant of the responsibility that accompanies the people's mandate to fulfill the aspirations for a just, fair, and prosperous society. As we work towards national unity, reconciliation, and inclusive development, the continued encouragement and support of the international community will be important. Sri Lanka is an active member of the UN and a party to all core human rights instruments. We regularly engage with treaty bodies and special procedures. In the past few years, we have received visits from over 10 special procedures and engaged productively with treaty bodies, most recently with the CEDAW Committee, ICCPR, and the UPR. We are committed to genuine dialogue and cooperation on human rights through continuous and constructive engagement. Sri Lanka stands ready to support this Council in addressing the pressing global challenges in a balanced and holistic manner in line with its founding principles of universality, impartiality, objectivity, and non-selectivity. We believe that states must be encouraged and empowered to address their challenges through robust national human rights frameworks, supplemented by assistance upon request. We will continue to work in a constructive spirit of dialogue and cooperation with the UN and this Council within our national legal framework. Thank you very much.
Je remercie Son Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre des Affaires étrangères de Sri Lanka. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Lars Løkke Rasmussen, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Denmark.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, it is an honor to address the Council. As we all know, human rights are crucial to human dignity, equality, freedom, peace, and sustainable development. These principles form the very foundation of a good life. Unfortunately, that is far from the reality for many people around the world. Let me provide just a few examples. 3 years ago, Russia launched its illegal, unprovoked, and unjustified full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Civilians have been forced to flee their homes. Civilians have been traumatized. Civilians have been killed. We must all continue to stand by the Ukrainian people for as long as necessary. In Gaza, the humanitarian situation remains catastrophic following Hamas's horrific terror attack on 7 October 2023. Far too many civilians have been killed. The events that have unfolded over the last 16 months clearly illustrate the need for a long-term solution to the decades-long conflicts. We have seen some positive momentum during the past month, but we must continue to focus on taking steps towards sustainable peace. A two-state solution is the only viable long-term solution. In the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the current escalation of the conflict is deeply concerning, as also discussed by the Council in the special session a few weeks ago. Reports of sexual and gender-based violence, including cases of mass rape, are horrific. The people of the DRC deserve peace. The people of the Great Lakes region deserve peace. International borders must be respected. There is no military solution to the conflict, only a political one. In Myanmar, the junta continues its brutal crackdown, oppressing its people. Our voice in support of the people of Myanmar is therefore still important. And unfortunately, I could continue this list. The United Nations play a vital role in maintaining peace and security, and in ensuring a stable and just global order. The UN is the only place where the whole world can come together to advance peace, security, and fundamental freedoms for all. The importance of international law cannot be overstated. No nation can stand alone. Global challenges demand global solutions. We cannot afford to move backward. Our collective goal must be in a world free of war, a world free of poverty, a world free from the suppression of human rights. Thank you.
I thank the foreign minister of Denmark for his statement. Maintenant, j'aimerais donner la parole à son Excellence M. Paul-Marie Gondjoud, ministre de la Justice et garde des Sceaux du Gabon. Excellence, vous avez la parole.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président du Conseil des droits de l'homme, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs, Mesdames et Messieurs, l'occasion et les circonstances me conduisent avant tout propos à adresser à l'ensemble de la communauté des nations représentée à cette rencontre d'importance par les différents États et institutions les salutations du gouvernement de la transition et du peuple gabonais. Permettez-moi de rendre un hommage mérité au Conseil des droits de l'homme et à l'ensemble de ses mécanismes pour le travail accompli en faveur des droits de l'homme. Qu'il me soit également permis d'adresser mes vives félicitations à son Excellence Jürg Lauber, ambassadeur représentant permanent de Suisse, pour le choix porté sur sa personne à la présidence du Conseil des droits de l'homme pour l'année 2025. Nos félicitations s'adressent également à votre prédécesseur, son Excellence Omar Zdimber, ambassadeur représentant permanent du Maroc, pour la qualité de son mandat. Enfin, je voudrais exprimer la haute appréciation de ma délégation à M. Volker Türk, haut-commissaire aux droits de l'homme, et à son équipe pour leur inlassable effort accompli en faveur de la promotion et la protection des droits de l'homme, en dépit des défis auxquels ils font face. Monsieur le Président, en me faisant l'honneur de le représenter ici, son Excellence le général de brigade, Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, président de la transition, président de la République, chef de l'État, réaffirme l'ancrage du Gabon au multilatéralisme et notre engagement aux principes des droits de l'homme. Lesquels principes aujourd'hui sont ébranlés par des crises multiformes dont la réponse, à notre point de vue, réside inéluctablement dans des institutions multilatérales plus fortes, érigeant les droits humains en pierres angulaires de nos sociétés. Il me plaît également de partager avec vous les principaux développements intervenus au Gabon depuis la 55e session après le coup de la libération du 30 août 2023. La détermination des autorités de la transition à garantir le respect des droits de l'homme depuis 16 mois s'est traduite par les efforts consentis et les actions menées au plan national et international avec l'appui des partenaires internationaux. Dans le cadre de la coopération avec les mécanismes des droits de l'homme, mon pays se réjouit d'avoir, reçu la visite du sous-comité de prévention de la torture au mois de mars 2024, de même qu'il a transmis les rapports au titre de la Convention contre la torture et autres peines ou traitements cruels, inhumains et dégradants et de la Convention pour l'élimination de la discrimination raciale. Au niveau national, de nombreuses mesures ont été menées avec l'appui des partenaires pour rendre effectifs les droits de l'homme. Au mois de janvier dernier, un atelier a été organisé à l'endroit des membres du mécanisme national d'élaboration des rapports sur l'utilisation de la base des données et sur l'adoption du plan d'action de mise en œuvre des recommandations du 4e cycle de l'EPU. La promulgation de la loi 23/2024 du 21 novembre 2024 portant réorganisation de la Commission nationale des droits de l'homme en République gabonaise constitue une avancée majeure pour la réalisation des droits de l'homme dans mon pays. Un appel à candidature a été publié le 12 février dernier et la sélection des membres se fera dans les semaines à venir par l'Assemblée nationale. Il en est de même du décret 133 du 27 mars 2024 portant création, attribution, organisation et fonctionnement de la Commission nationale des droits de prévention et de lutte contre la traite des personnes en République gabonaise, organe de coordination des questions de traite des personnes qui vient renforcer le dispositif existant en la matière. Sur le plan pénal, les infractions et principes relatifs à la réparation des préjudices causés par les violations des droits de l'homme ont été pris en compte dans le cadre de la révision du Code pénal et du Code de procédure pénale pour un meilleur respect et une meilleure protection des droits humains. Dans le domaine de la santé, il me plaît aussi de mentionner ici que le gouvernement a progressivement adapté ses actions aux enjeux de la transition nationale par la mise en œuvre de projets stratégiques visant à améliorer l'offre de soins, renforcer la gouvernance et surtout assurer aux services de santé tous les Gabonais. Monsieur le Président, depuis le mois d'août 2023, les autorités de la transition sont engagées par le biais d'une feuille de route dans des réformes politiques et institutionnelles visant à favoriser le retour à un ordre constitutionnel apaisé et sécurisé avant l'organisation des élections. Les dites réformes, menées avec l'implication des forces vives de la nation, ont principalement porté sur la tenue du dialogue national inclusif du 2 au 30 avril 2024, qui a enregistré plus de 680 participants, y compris ceux de la diaspora. L'adoption d'une nouvelle constitution au terme d'un référendum qui consacre entre autres un septennat renouvelable une seule fois dans le cadre d'un régime présidentiel avec la particularité de l'interdiction d'une transmission dynastique du pouvoir. Elle renforce l'état de droit et consolide les bases de la réconciliation nationale et de la cohésion sociale. L'adoption de la loi organique 1/2005 du 19 janvier 2025 portant code électoral en République gabonaise qui apporte des innovations majeures visant à simplifier le cadre juridique, à renforcer la transparence et la régularité des scrutins et mieux prendre en compte les attentes des citoyens en termes de sincérité des résultats des élections. Au titre des nouveautés, on note la mise en place avant chaque élection d'une autorité indépendante chargée de veiller à la transparence et à la sincérité des scrutins, la création de 2 sièges de députés pour la diaspora gabonaise, le droit de vote pour les citoyens incarcérés, l'introduction de quotas de 30% de candidatures pour les femmes et de 20% pour les jeunes. L'implication des femmes au processus électoral s'inscrit dans le droit fil de notre détermination à faire appliquer la déclaration et le programme d'action de Beijing lancé il y a plus de 30 ans. Sur cette question, il est essentiel de relever la dynamique pour renforcer les droits des femmes, promouvoir l'égalité des sexes et lutter contre les violences faites aux femmes à travers l'adoption d'une stratégie nationale pour l'égalité des genres. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, notre session se tient au moment où le Gabon entre dans une république établie par la nouvelle Constitution qui renforce l'état de droit, consolide les libertés et la gouvernance démocratique. En effet, mon pays s'achemine vers la fin de la période de transition par l'organisation de l'élection présidentielle le 12 avril prochain, suivie d'élections législatives et locales. Je saisis cette occasion solennelle pour remercier l'ensemble de nos partenaires bilatéraux, régionaux et multilatéraux pour l'accompagnement et le soutien apporté dans le processus de stabilisation et de retour à un ordre constitutionnel sécurisé et apaisé. La coopération internationale renforcée étant, à notre humble avis, l'unique option pour des solutions durables en matière de droits de l'homme. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre de la Justice du Gabon. Merci. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Andreas Kravik, State Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Norway. Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Mr. President, over the past year, the world has again witnessed an unacceptable number of violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. We have seen an increased willingness to disregard the important lessons of the past and ignore our responsibility to stand up for human rights and fundamental freedoms. The UN Charter, international humanitarian law, and human rights must be respected and protected. Violations are unacceptable. If states can safely violate international law, its credibility collapses. And, obviously, it will be harder to uphold international law in the future. In Ukraine, Russia has shown a blatant disregard for the UN Charter, international humanitarian law, and human rights. Yesterday, in the UN headquarters in New York, the vast majority of UN member states gathered around defending international law, the UN Charter, and a sustainable peace for Ukraine. Ukraine's fight for freedom is our fight for freedom, and Russia's aggression continues, and we need to remind ourselves that this is a Russian war of choice. Russia could end this war tomorrow. Norway will not relent in our support for Ukraine. The Human Rights Council has a crucial role to play in upholding international law, including through mandating independent investigations and monitoring of human rights situations. And the ability of this Council to act is all the more important. Those responsible for violations and abuses of international humanitarian law and international human rights law must be held accountable. In Palestine, in Ukraine, in Sudan, and in other conflicts and crises, human rights defenders continue to be essential in promoting and protecting all human rights for everyone. They must not be silenced. They must, in fact, be protected, included, and supported. Mr. President, Norway will continue to stand up for the human rights and fundamental freedoms of everyone, economic, social, and cultural, as well as civil and political rights, for everyone and everywhere. We are currently witnessing a regression of women's and girls' human rights and a backlash against feminist movements. Hard-won progress is slowly eroding. The status of women, along with the rights of LGBT+ persons, individuals with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and ethnic and religious minorities, serve as crucial parameter for the health of any society. Denying these groups their rights weakens the very foundation of our societies and undermines the principles of equality, non-discrimination, and accountability. Norway will remain a strong supporter of the rights of women and girls, including their right to decide over their own bodies. We are committed to continuing our fight for and support to sexual and reproductive rights and health, both financially and politically. If women do not enjoy sexual and reproductive health and rights, their political and economic participation is also affected and societies suffer. Mr. President, protecting human rights online as well as offline is an important priority for Norway's national and foreign policy. Although digital communication tools and social media have made it possible for many to access and share information and opinions directly with others, we also see more hate speech and abuse that threaten the right to freedom of expression and personal privacy. The scale of hate speech and disinformation online increases polarization in society and undermines trust in democratic institutions and values. It targets human rights defenders and seeks to limit, silence, and discredit them. Internationally, Norway supports efforts to combat digital violence and harassment, spreading of disinformation and hate speech through several means. We believe that a multi-stakeholder approach is necessary to succeed in this work. Addressing hate speech does not mean limiting freedom of expression. It means keeping hate speech from escalating into something much more dangerous. Mr. President, Norway is proud to present during this session a resolution on the protection of human rights defenders in the digital sphere. It will focus on new and emerging technologies and human rights defenders. We see this as a relevant and timely issue, including in the lead-up to the Internet Governance Forum that Norway will host in June this year. We invite all states and civil society to engage in constructive and transparent negotiations and hope that the resolution will enjoy the Council's consensual support. Finally, we look forward to working with all of you to uphold our shared commitment to the core values of the UN Human Rights Council. And I thank you for your attention.
I thank the State Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Norway for his statement. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Georgios Kostsiras, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Greece. Since we have the floor.
Your Excellency, High Commissioner for Human Rights, President of the Human Rights Council, Excellencies, it's a great honor for me to address the 58th high-level segment of the Human Rights Council. I wish to express our utmost appreciation for the work of High Commissioner Turk, whom we warmly thank for his inspirational visit to Athens last November. Today, the world faces truly unprecedented challenges and conflicts that brutally violate human rights law, humanitarian law, and the United Nations Charter. The human rights situation in Ukraine, the Middle East, Sudan, the DRC, and other conflict zones has caused hundreds of thousands of deaths, starvation, and millions of refugees. The multilateral system itself is challenged as never before. In this framework, this Council is a source of hope, where human rights are not simply at the center of our decisions, but an end in itself. These days, in all international fora, there is one common topic for discussion: the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We stand in sorrow and respect for the thousands of our fellow human beings who lost their lives during the war. For Greece, it is a matter of principle. We will always oppose the threat of the use of force. Greece will always advocate for the peaceful settlement of disputes, with full respect to international law and the UN Charter. The only solution is a diplomatic solution that will lead to the cessation of the deadly hostilities and the establishment of a generally acceptable, just and lasting peace for Ukraine with adequate security guarantees. In the Middle East, the ceasefire and hostage release agreements are significant breakthroughs. Now, all hostages have to be released to ensure a permanent end to hostilities, and the political process must start paving the way for the reconstruction of Gaza. With deep regret, we note that since October 7th, anti-Semitism has spiked worldwide. We must do our utmost together to fight anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and preserve our democratic and human rights values. Greece reiterates its unwavering support for Syria's unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Syria needs an inclusive government where all ethnic and religious communities participate, protecting the legitimate rights of all Syrians, a government free of external intervention, respecting international law. Greece, on its part, is a pole of stability in the entire region. Prime Minister Mitsotakis and Foreign Minister Gerapetritis have repeatedly visited the Middle East to promote peace and stability. We declare our readiness to contribute actively with humanitarian aid and technical assistance in institution building in Syria and the region. We welcome the deployment of 2 OHCHR teams to Armenia to collect information about displaced persons and refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh. Mr. President, Greece, a nation whose history has profoundly shaped the values of democracy, diplomacy and dialogue, fully supports the multilateral human rights system within the United Nations. As an elected non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, Greece is working hard to advance the peaceful settlement of disputes, international law, climate and maritime security, and protect women and children in armed conflict. Greece actively promotes the Human Rights Council's vital work, focusing on youth, sport, and human rights education as an open window for progress, notably by co-sponsoring relevant resolutions. In times of severe challenges, there is but one way forward: working together, building bridges in trying to reach our common goals. At the national level, Greece systematically implements strategic master plans on key social issues. In parallel, we have introduced targeted horizontal policies, continuously evaluated through central government mechanisms. Each initiative marks a significant step toward a more just and inclusive society rooted in the rule of law. As regards to the human rights of refugees, we have radically improved our asylum system, our reception facilities, and our unaccompanied minors program, while strengthening the protection of EU borders and intensifying efforts to combat smuggling networks. The Greek Coast Guard has saved more than 500,000 lives in the sea. Regarding allegations that were heard yesterday in this room, Greece constantly places particular emphasis on safeguarding the rights of the Muslim minority of Thrace, a religious minority according to the Treaty of Lausanne. Its members enjoy both special protection as a religious minority in accordance with the said treaty and their full rights as Greek and EU citizens. And from this floor, I would like to reiterate Greece's firm support for a just and viable solution of the Cyprus issue according to the United Nations Security Council resolutions. This solution would be the best guarantee for the rights of all Cypriots. Mr. President, as a candidate country for the HRC 2028-2030, Greece reiterates its unwavering readiness to contribute substantially to the long-term effectiveness of the United Nations system. Together, we can build a world where human dignity is not just an aspiration, but a reality for all future generations. Thank you.
I thank you, Excellency, for your statement. Now, I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Nuno Sampaio, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Portugal. Excellency, you have the floor.
Senhor Presidente, Excelências, agradeço ao Secretariado a possibilidade de me exprimir em português, uma língua que une quase 300 milhões de pessoas e que esperamos que se torne língua oficial das Nações Unidas num futuro próximo. Este Conselho reúne num momento particularmente desafiante, marcado pela confluência de múltiplos desafios, em que o multilateralismo e o respeito pelos direitos humanos têm sido postos à prova. Temos assistido à erosão gradual do direito humanitário em zonas de guerra, a retrocessos democráticos, à promessa cada vez mais longínqua da realização da igualdade de género, à propagação do ódio, da desinformação, da intolerância e do racismo. Assistimos na Ucrânia, onde 3 anos após o início da guerra, da agressão provocada pela Rússia, continuamos a deparar-nos com violações do direito internacional, bem como o tratamento de prisioneiros de guerra em violação das Convenções de Genebra. Assistimos em Gaza, onde saudamos o cessar-fogo e a progressiva libertação de reféns, mas não esquecemos o número inaceitável de vítimas civis, a destruição sem precedentes de infraestruturas, incluindo escolas e hospitais, e as restrições à ajuda monetária. Mas assistimos também no Sahel, no Corno da África ou na região dos Grandes Lagos, onde as populações continuam a pagar um preço demasiado elevado pelo perpetuar de conflitos. Lamentamos profundamente que o último ano fique para a história como um dos mais sombrios para as crianças, de acordo com o recente relatório da representante especial do Secretário-Geral para as Crianças e Conflitos Armados. Reiteramos a necessidade de respeitar e garantir o respeito pelo direito internacional humanitário e de contribuir para uma cultura global de respeito dos direitos humanos. Senhor Presidente, no ano em que se comemoram os 80 anos da criação das Nações Unidas, a aprovação do Pacto do Futuro oferece-nos uma esperança renovada no multilateralismo e nos 3 pilares centrais da ação das Nações Unidas. Portugal defende uma ONU paritária, na qual estes pilares disponham de igual importância e de recursos adequados. Não há paz e segurança sem direitos humanos, e sem direitos humanos não existe também desenvolvimento sustentável. Pugnamos porque este Conselho seja elevado ao órgão principal das Nações Unidas e que sejam exploradas mais estreitas sinergias com o Conselho de Segurança. Defendemos um sistema internacional de proteção eficaz que previna violações e abusos de direitos humanos e que assegure a responsabilização dos perpetradores. Um sistema independente, amplo e abrangente que salvaguarde a autonomia do Alto Comissário e do seu escritório, que continue a reforçar os órgãos de tratados e os vários mecanismos do Conselho e que permita a participação de todos os atores, desde logo dos pequenos Estados insulares em desenvolvimento e dos países menos desenvolvidos, para cujo fundo fiduciário Portugal tem contribuído, bem como a sociedade civil. Senhor Presidente, Portugal continuará a fazer a sua parte para fortalecer o sistema multilateral de direitos humanos, participando nele de forma ativa. Dentro de dias, apresentaremos uma resolução sobre os direitos económicos, sociais e culturais. A resolução deste ano abordará especificamente o tema do financiamento para o desenvolvimento. Portugal tem participado ativamente nas discussões deste tema, enquanto co-presidente do processo preparatório da 4ª Conferência Internacional para o Financiamento do Desenvolvimento e em outros fóruns multilaterais. Move-nos o objetivo de contribuir para tornar a arquitetura financeira internacional adequada à sua finalidade e garantir uma perspectiva de direitos humanos para alcançar os objetivos de desenvolvimento sustentável. Em junho, Portugal apresentará uma resolução sobre o direito à educação. Continuaremos a liderar o grupo de amigos sobre os mecanismos nacionais de implementação, reporte e seguimento das obrigações e recomendações internacionais de direitos humanos. E trabalharemos, juntamente com Marrocos e o Paraguai, para promover a rede internacional destes mecanismos, através também da organização de um 3º seminário internacional em Lisboa. Dentro de dias, teremos a adoção do resultado do Exame Periódico Universal de Portugal. O UPR é um instrumento fundamental para o diálogo construtivo entre Estados. Prosseguiremos esforços em áreas que consideramos prioritárias, como a abolição da pena de morte, o combate ao racismo, a proteção dos direitos humanos dos jovens e dos imigrantes. Este ano é também um ano-chave para a promoção da igualdade de género e dos direitos das mulheres. Celebramos os 30 anos da adoção da Declaração e Plataforma de Ação de Pequim e o 25º aniversário da Resolução 1325 do Conselho de Segurança sobre Mulheres, Paz e Segurança. Aguardaremos com elevada expectativa os resultados da 69ª sessão da Comissão sobre o Estatuto da Mulher, na qual iremos participar ativamente. Concluo, Sr. Presidente, reiterando o apoio de Portugal a este Conselho, fiéis à nossa tradição de estabelecer pontes bem como aos princípios que defendemos e aos compromissos que assumimos. Promoveremos o diálogo construtivo e inclusivo, considerando que a realização dos direitos humanos é sempre um processo inacabado que só coletivamente poderemos cumprir. É com essa confiança no multilateralismo e em prol destes valores que Portugal, com a continuidade e coerência que caracteriza a nossa política externa, é candidato a um lugar de membro não permanente do Conselho de Segurança para o biênio 2027-2028. Muito obrigado.
I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Nanu Sampaio for his statement. And now I give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Kang In-sun, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Vice President, distinguished delegates, it is my second time addressing this August Chamber following last year. And this year, I am standing before you with an even keener sense of responsibility as the Republic of Korea has embarked on its role as a member of the Human Rights Council. We celebrate the 8th anniversary of the UN and recall its spirit rooted in humanity's inherent longing for peace. Yet, we still witness grave human rights situations unfolding in all corners of the globe. The war against Ukraine just reached its third year yesterday, and it has been further complicated by strengthened military ties between Russia and the DPRK. Daily, we hear reports of the eroding human rights situation in Gaza and the DRC. The rise of emerging technologies is adding to the complexities of human rights challenges like a Pandora's box. As rightly observed by the High Commissioner, the key to resolving today's conflicts and crises rests in greater respect for human rights, not less. In this regard, 2025 offers a fitting opportunity to double down on our efforts in enhancing human rights as we start to implement the Pact for the Future adopted last year. As a member of the Human Rights Council, we will constructively engage with the international community, focusing on the following key priorities. First, we reiterate our unwavering belief in the Council and UN human rights mechanisms as well as a bastion of promoting and protecting human rights. Human rights are universal and every voice counts. The Council plays an indispensable role in helping developing countries build the capacity to advance human rights norms and policies. Korea will continue to support such endeavors to ensure that human rights-based approaches are effectively implemented around the world. Second, the digital transformation. It is reshaping our world, and it presents both opportunities and challenges for human rights. Recognizing these transformative developments, Korea has made it a priority to tackle these complexities through a human rights-based approach. We are committed to leveraging our digital expertise to help the Council navigate the evolving human rights landscape in the digital age. In this regard, we will table our fourth resolution on this critical issue at the 59th session. Third, we must do more to protect women, girls, and other vulnerable groups, especially in times of escalating conflicts and protracted crises. This year marks 30 years since the Beijing Declaration and 25 years since UN Security Council Resolutions 1325. It is a crucial moment to renew our wholehearted commitment to gender equality. Korea has long supported the WPS agenda, and we have been promoting survivor-centered responses to gender-based violence in conflict. As a country with the historical experience of women and girls victimized as a comfort to women, we view the WPS agenda as a particularly relevant and significant. We will continue to work together with the Japanese government to restore the honor and dignity of the comfort to women and to help to heal their psychological wounds. At the last June's Security Council briefing on the human rights situation in the DPRK, the High Commissioner accurately captured the dire situation on the ground, a stifling, claustrophobic environment where life is a daily struggle devoid of hope. The DPRK's deployment of its troops to Russia once again highlights the linkage between the DPRK's human rights abuses and its ramifications for international peace and security, like two sides of the same coin. Reportedly, DPRK soldiers are drawn to the battlefield unaware of their involvement in the real combat and trained to commit suicide when captured, which is incompatible with the right to life. We are deeply concerned about the inhumane treatment of the DPRK escapees being forcibly repatriated, including extrajudicial executions, arbitrary detentions, and enforced disappearances, as reported by the multiple UN special procedures. We reiterate our call for the states to respect the principle of non-refoulement. My government once again strongly urges the DPRK to immediately resolve all issues relating to abductees, detainees, and unrepatriated prisoners of war, including the prompt release of the 3 Korean missionaries, Kim Jong-uk, Kim Guk-ki, and Choi Chun-gil. We strongly urge the DPRK to heed the international community's recommendations made during last year's UPR and take prompt actions to bring about fundamental change in its dire human rights situation. And we look forward to the release of the High Commissioner's comprehensive report, which updates the human rights situation in the DPRK since 2014. Rising from the ashes of war, my country overcame devastation, poverty, and national division. We have never relented in striving to build a nation founded on freedom, democracy, and prosperity. The journey was arduous, and it remains so. But time and again, we have proved our resilience. The road to promoting and protecting human rights is not straightforward. Korea, based on our experience and strong sense of resilience, will remain a dedicated partner in navigating this path. Thank you.
Je remercie Son Excellence, Madame la ministre des Affaires étrangères de Corée. Maintenant, je donne la parole à Son Excellence Monsieur Neil Richmond, Minister of State for International Development and Diaspora of Ireland. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Vice President, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to address the Human Rights Council at the opening of this, its 58th session. It is 70 years since Ireland joined the United Nations. Then, like now, we did not take our role as a UN member state lightly, but made a firm commitment to the multilateral rule-based order and to the UN Charter. A few short months ago, all states here pledged a new beginning to multilateralism by signing the Pact for the Future and committing to human rights as an integral part of the UN system. As we convene for this new session of the Human Rights Council, we also restate our commitment to this Council, the primary UN human rights body. Our presence here this week is a show of unity in the face of division, of support to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, to international law, and to upholding, promoting and defending human rights. In times of crisis like we face today, it is difficult not to lean into division and distrust. However, it is also in these moments that we can and must stand secure in our commitment to the principles of interrelated, interdependent and indivisible human rights. Today, like 70 years ago, I restate Ireland's commitment to a rules-based international order and to a constant, persevering dedication to peace. Mr. Vice President, this week, 3 years ago, Russia made clear its disdain for the UN Charter and international human rights law. The Commission of Inquiry established by this Council has found that violations of human rights and international humanitarian law, as well as war crimes, have been committed in the context of Russia's brutal, illegal war of aggression against Ukraine. The international community must continue to condemn such actions and ensure that perpetrators of human rights violations and abuses are held to account. Ireland will continue to call for an end to Russia's war of aggression and violations of international law, and for a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine based on the UN Charter and with respect for Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Last week marked 500 days since the brutal attacks perpetrated by Hamas and other terrorist organisations on Israel. Ireland unreservedly condemns these attacks and the taking of hostages. Last month we welcomed the long-awaited ceasefire and hostage release agreement in Gaza. This brought much-needed hope and relief to the people of both Israel and Palestine. We need to see the ceasefire agreement fully implemented in all its phases, including the release of all hostages. There must also be continuing entry of humanitarian aid at scale, the provision of basic services and a framework for the return of those displaced from their homes within Gaza. We must also remain focused on the deteriorating situation in the West Bank. Ultimately, implementation of the two-state solution remains the only way to ensure lasting peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Mr. Vice President, in Sudan, the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces and their allied movements and militias have shown utter disregard for human rights. They must comply with their obligations to protect civilians, humanitarian workers and human rights defenders from harm and allow rapid and unimpeded humanitarian relief to all areas under their control. In Yemen, attacks against civilians by all parties to the conflict should be independently investigated to ensure accountability and enhance the protection of Yemeni civilians. In Afghanistan, the High Commissioner has determined that systematic gender persecution is being perpetrated by the Taliban. The Taliban must revoke all discriminatory decrees and all other measures that seek to eradicate women and girls' access to education, work and public services, and that restrict their freedom of movement. Mr. Vice President, Ireland is firmly committed to protecting and advancing both civil and political and economic, social and cultural rights. In recent years, the Human Rights Council has addressed the human rights implications of climate change. We have discussed how to enhance global protection against business-related human rights abuses, advocated for a human rights-based approach to new and emerging technologies, promoted gender equality and advanced guidance on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination and the prevention of violence and discrimination against LGBTI+ persons. A crucial component of this process is the constant open engagement with civil society partners. We have and must continue to advance protections for civil society and for human rights defenders. Mr. Vice President, this Council must be enabled to fulfil its role as the primary intergovernmental body for the promotion and protection of human rights globally. The Office of the High Commissioner must be adequately resourced and empowered to carry out its vital work. The guidance and recommendation of special procedures and of the treaty body committees must be heeded. Respect for human rights is where our values and interests align. It is through more respect for human rights that we achieve peace, prosperity and sustainable development. Mr. Vice President, in conclusion, as you will be aware, Ireland is seeking membership of the Human Rights Council for the term 2027 to 2029. If elected, we will protect and champion the universality of human rights and the principle of non-discrimination. We will be an advocate for prevention and for accountability, and we will work in partnership and good faith with all who share our commitment to multilateralism and the values and principles set out in the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And thank you very much.
I would like to thank His Excellency. And now I give the floor to Son Excellence Madame Isabelle Béraud Amadei, conseiller de gouvernement, ministre des Relations extérieures et la coopération de Monaco par vidéo.
Monsieur le Président du Conseil des droits de l'homme, Monsieur le Haut-Commissaire, Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs. En tout premier lieu, je souhaite réaffirmer, une nouvelle fois, l'importance que revêt pour la Principauté de Monaco le respect des droits de l'homme, du droit international et de nos engagements communs en faveur des buts et principes des Nations Unies. Il y a quelques semaines, j'ai eu l'honneur de mener la délégation monégasque lors des cérémonies organisées dans le cadre du 80e anniversaire de la libération du camp d'Auschwitz-Birkenau. Ces émouvantes commémorations, en honorant la mémoire de millions de victimes de la barbarie humaine, ont mis en lumière le bien fondé du combat en faveur des droits de l'homme, de leur universalité et de leur indivisibilité. Il s'agit d'un combat permanent et plus que jamais d'actualité. Alors que les tensions géopolitiques, les conflits régionaux ou interétatiques et les crises humanitaires perdurent, il est de notre responsabilité commune de toujours défendre les valeurs sur lesquelles est bâti le système onusien. La guerre n'y a pas sa place, pas plus que les conditions de vie inacceptables dans lesquelles est plongée une grande partie de l'humanité. Ainsi, en Ukraine, 3 ans jour pour jour après le début de l'agression russe, les armes ne se sont toujours pas tues. Les violations graves des droits de l'homme s'y poursuivent, comme en attestent les rapports soumis à ce Conseil par votre bureau, Monsieur le Haut-Commissaire, ainsi que par la Commission d'enquête internationale. Ce travail de documentation est inestimable et indispensable dans l'optique d'établir les responsabilités. Cette année encore, Monaco soutiendra le renouvellement du mandat de la Commission. En ce qui concerne la situation au Moyen-Orient, la Principauté de Monaco se félicite de l'arrêt des combats dans la bande de Gaza et au Liban et des libérations d'otages. Le très lourd bilan humain et matériel est effroyable. Monaco réaffirme que la solution à toute crise ne peut être que politique. Le processus de paix et de reconstruction sera long et coûteux. Il ne pourra être mené à bien que dans un climat de paix et de sécurité pour les populations civiles de la région et dans le cadre de la solution à 2 États que nous continuons d'appeler de nos vœux. La situation en Syrie a aussi connu des développements très importants après 13 ans de guerre civile et d'une crise humanitaire sans précédent. Ce Conseil s'est activement mobilisé dès le début de la crise et cet engagement ne s'est jamais démenti jusqu'ici. Les témoignages et les preuves recueillies par la commission d'enquête et par le mécanisme sur la Syrie seront précieux pour établir les responsabilités et lutter contre l'impunité. Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, Monaco réaffirme que la paix, le développement durable et les droits de l'homme sont indissociables. Aussi, ce Conseil est-il central pour défendre notre vision d'un monde pacifique, juste, où tous peuvent vivre dans la dignité. Les commissions d'enquête et les missions d'établissement des faits mandatées par l'ONU jouent un rôle important pour répondre aux violations du droit international et du droit humanitaire international. C'est pourquoi, très récemment, au regard des événements dans l'Est de la République démocratique du Congo, Monaco a soutenu la mise en place d'une mission d'établissement des faits lors de la session extraordinaire du 7 février dernier. J'aurais pu également évoquer bien d'autres situations particulièrement préoccupantes, en particulier pour les droits des femmes et des minorités dans de nombreux pays. Toutes les crises mobilisent fortement les ressources du Haut-Commissariat que nous savons toujours insuffisantes. À cela s'ajoutent d'importants défis transversaux qui ont émergé et nécessitent une action coordonnée au niveau mondial. Je pense par exemple aux effets du changement climatique, à la dégradation de notre environnement ou encore au développement rapide de l'intelligence artificielle. Dans ce contexte, je vous assure, Monsieur le Haut-Commissaire, que la Principauté maintiendra, cette année encore, son soutien politique et financier à votre bureau. Je souhaite un plein succès aux travaux du Conseil et vous assure du total engagement de la délégation monégasque à cette fin. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Je remercie Son Excellence Madame Isabelle Bero Amadei pour sa déclaration. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Melita Gabric, State Secretary for Multilateral Affairs, Economic Diplomacy and Development Cooperation of Slovenia. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address this esteemed Council on behalf of the Republic of Slovenia, a country firmly committed to upholding the principles of dignity, equality, and justice for all. The 18th anniversary of the United Nations, a milestone we celebrate this year, invites us to reflect on the enduring importance of human rights, multilateralism, and the rules-based international order, all of which have faced serious challenges in recent years. The UN was born out of the ashes of the Second World War. As we commemorate this anniversary, we also remember the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau and the horrors of the Holocaust. This year, we also commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide. These tragedies remind us of the consequences of hatred, intolerance, and the failure to protect the most vulnerable. They compel us to renew our pledge, never again. Yet today, we face some 70 conflicts around the world, causing immense suffering and destruction, from Ukraine, where it has been 3 years since the unprovoked and illegal Russian aggression, to Sudan, where millions are subject to violence, displacement, and hunger. While we see some steps in the right direction in the Middle East, there remains an urgent need to ensure that the fundamental human rights of all people, including of the people in Gaza, are respected and that they can live in dignity and safety. All this underscores the urgent need for collective action, as human rights are also the very foundation of peace and security. The UN Human Rights Council plays a central role in this endeavor. Slovenia strongly supports, from the very outset, the Council and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in their efforts to address violations, promote justice, and prevent future atrocities. Prevention must remain at the very core of our work, as only through early action can we avert the escalation of conflicts and protect human dignity. As the High Commissioner reminds us, human rights are a low-cost investment with high returns. As a member of the Security Council, Slovenia firmly believes that human rights must be an integral part of all the Security Council deliberations. For my country, the rights of those who are marginalized are a priority. On the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and the 25th anniversary of the UN Security Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, Slovenia reaffirms its commitment to gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. In the face of rapid demographic change, the human rights of older persons should receive more attention. We believe it is time to take concrete action to address the existing gaps in human rights protection so that older persons can enjoy their human rights on an equal basis and participate actively in societies. Similarly, we must advance the implementation of the right to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment, a right that Slovenia has been an avid promoter of. As we face manifold challenges, we must never lose sight of our responsibility to uphold the human rights of every individual. It is in this spirit that Slovenia stands for membership of the UN Human Rights Council for the period 2026 to 2028. We pledge to work tirelessly to strengthen the Council's effectiveness, promote inclusiveness, and ensure that no one is left behind. As we look to the future, let us honor the memory of those who have suffered and died in conflicts and atrocities by building a world where human rights are respected, protected, and fulfilled for every human being. Together, we can and must make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Her Excellency, Ms. Melita Gebrich, for a statement. Now we give the floor to Her Excellency, Ms. Versan Aghabekian, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the State of Palestine. Excellency, you have the floor.
سعادة نائب رئيس المجلس، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، يواجه الشعب الفلسطيني أخطر مرحلة في تاريخه، حيث تمارس سلطات الاحتلال غير القانوني سياسة ممنهجة من القتل والدمار والتجويع والتهجير القسري والتنكيل والاعتقال، مستمرة في سجلها الطويل من جرائم الحرب والجرائم ضد الإنسانية على مدار 58 عام، مستفيدة من غياب المحاسبة والمساءلة. نقف اليوم أمامكم رافضين بشدة ومنددين بكل المخططات التي تستهدف تهجير شعبنا والتلاعب بمصيره. إنها دعوات تجاوزت حدودها لتمس بسيادة دول أخرى، ولا يمكن وصفها إلا بمحاولات مكشوفة تهدف إلى صرف أنظار العالم عن المجازر والاستيطان ونهب الأراضي والاعتداءات المتصاعدة على المقدسات وعربدة المستوطنين. السيد نائب الرئيس، ارتكبت جريمة الإبادة الجماعية بدم بارد في قطاع غزة، حيث استشهد وجرح أكثر من 180 ألف فلسطيني، معظمهم من الأطفال والنساء، فيما يواجه مليونان نازح خطر الجوع والمرض والموت تحت وطأة الحصار. دمرت المستشفيات والمدارس وقصفت أماكن العبادة وكل البنى التحتية، دافع المجتمع بأسره نحو كارثة إنسانية غير مسبوقة. وأمام هول هذه المجازر أصدرت محكمة العدل الدولية 3 أوامر احترازية في يناير ومارس ومايو 2023 رداً على الدعوى المقدمة من جنوب إفريقيا. وفي الضفة الغربية تتواصل الإعدامات الميدانية والاعتقالات التعسفية، ويستمر الاحتلال في هدم المنازل، بينما يزداد الاستيطان توسعاً لالتهام ما تبقى من الأرض الفلسطينية. تتزايد هجمات المستوطنين على المواطنين العزل تحت حماية جيش الاحتلال الذي يسهم في تأمينها. أيضاً هجر أكثر من 40 ألف فلسطيني قسراً من منازلهم في مخيمات اللجوء في جنين وطوباس وتلكرم، في أكبر عملية تهجير قسري تشهدها الضفة منذ عقود. إضافة إلى ذلك يفرض الاحتلال حواجز عسكرية أصبحت طوقاً خانقاً يعزل المدن والقرى محاصراً الفلسطينيين في وطنهم. أما في القدس فتتصاعد وتيرة التهويد والاعتداءات على المقدسات، حيث يمنع الفلسطينيون من الوصول إلى مساجدهم وكنائسهم في انتهاك صارخ لحقوق العبادة وحرية الدين. وتستمر حكومة اليمين في مخططات تفريغ المدينة من سكانها الأصليين. وفي ظل هذه الجرائم البشعة يعاني الأسرى الفلسطينيون في معتقلات الاحتلال من أبشع أساليب التعذيب الهمجية، يتعرضون للضرب المبرح والإهانات اللفظية الهادفة لتدمير كرامتهم، إضافة إلى حرمانهم من الطعام والإهمال الطبي المتعمد. ويواجه باقي الأسرى انهياراً صحياً ونفسياً عميقاً نتيجة هذا التعذيب المتواصل في انتهاك صارخ لكل القيم الإنسانية. وبالتوازي تتعرض وكالة الأونروا لهجمة شرسة تستهدف إنهاء دورها وتقويضها، باعتبارها شريان الحياة لأبناء شعبنا في كافة أماكن اللجوء. الأمر الذي يتطلب موقفا دوليا بأنه لا بديل لها ولدورها الآن وفي المستقبل، ولا تقليص لمهامها أو إضعاف لتمويلها، إلى حين تحقيق حقوق اللاجئين الفلسطينيين في العودة لوطنهم استنادا للقرار 194. السيد نائب الرئيس، اسمحوا لي أن أتقدم بالتهنئة لدولة سويسرا على توليها رئاسة مجلس حقوق الإنسان، وأن أعبر عن بالغ امتناننا لجهودها المتواصلة في تنظيم مؤتمر الأطراف السامية لاتفاقية جنيف، ونأمل أن تثمر مخرجات هذا المؤتمر عن توجيه التزامات واضحة للدول الأطراف تفرض عليها مسؤولياتها في احترام القانون الدولي وإنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي غير القانوني للأرض الفلسطينية. إن الأمن والاستقرار الدوليين لا يمكن أن يتحققا إلا بالتزام دولي جاد ومسؤول لتنفيذ حل الدولتين. وفي هذا السياق يشكل المؤتمر الدولي للسلام الذي سيعقد في نيويورك في منتصف حزيران المقبل تحت الرئاسة المشتركة للمملكة العربية السعودية وفرنسا فرصة تاريخية لبلورة رؤية جماعية تدفع باتجاه إنهاء الاحتلال والاعتراف الدولي الكامل بدولة فلسطين والحصول على عضوية كاملة في الأمم المتحدة، بما يضمن السلم والأمن في المنطقة استنادا إلى قرارات الشرعية الدولية، وعلى رأسها قرارات مجلس الأمن 242 و 338. وفي ظل المحاولات العديدة لإسكات صوت الحق، نجدد مطالبتنا للمجتمع الدولي بضرورة تعزيز دور مؤسسات العدالة الدولية بما فيها المحكمة الجنائية الدولية التي تتعرض لتهديدات وعقوبات بسبب سعيها الجاد لمحاسبة مجرمي الحرب. ونؤكد على ضرورة أن تقوم الدول بالوفاء بمسؤولياتها في هذه المرحلة التاريخية الفارقة، ونحيي تلك الدول التي وقفت بشجاعة في وجه آلة القتل والتدمير واتخذت مواقف أخلاقية وقانونية ثابتة، وأدانت بوضوح الجرائم المروعة المرتكبة بحق الأطفال والنساء والمدنيين العزل، ولم تكتفي بالتنديد بل سارت بخطى ثابتة نحو المحاكم الدولية مطالبة بتطبيق القانون الدولي وإنصاف الضحايا ومحاسبة مجرمي الحرب. السيد الرئيس، أكدت محكمة العدل الدولية في رأيها الاستشاري على عدم قانونية الاحتلال الإسرائيلي وضرورة اتخاذ خطوات عاجلة لإنهائه. وفي ضوء هذا الوضع الخطير لا بد من وضع أجندة عملية مفصلة تحدد مسؤولية الدول في إنهاء هذا الاحتلال الجائر ووضع حد للجرائم ضد الإنسانية والمشاريع التوسعية، بحيث تشمل تطبيق الرأي الاستشاري للمحكمة وتنفيذ القرارات الصادرة عن هذا المجلس بحظر شامل لتجارة الأسلحة مع الاحتلال ووقف جميع التعاملات التجارية مع المستوطنات غير القانونية. ألم يأن الأوان للعالم أن يحقق عدالة ولو جزئية لأطفال تقطعت أجزاءهم ونساء أشلاءهن في الشوارع وعائلات محيت بالكامل من السجل المدني؟ إن دولة فلسطين ملتزمة بتطبيق القانون الدولي والعمل مع كافة المنظمات الدولية المختصة والشركاء لإحلال السلام والعدالة. لا مجال للانتظار أو التأجيل، حان الوقت للتحرك الفوري لوضع حد نهائي للجرائم الممنهجة ضد الإنسانية وإنصاف الشعب الفلسطيني ومحاسبة المجرمين. وختاما نؤكد أن شعبنا سيواصل حياته في أرض آبائه وأجداده وسيواصل كفاحه المشروع من أجل الاستقلال، وحتما إن الاحتلال إلى زوال. شكرا.
I thank the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the State of Palestine for a statement. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Jordan Gerlich Ramdan, Minister for Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of Croatia, by video.
Mr. President, Mr. High Commissioner, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, almost 8 years ago, the UN rose from the ashes of the World War II, representing a new commitment to global peace and security. Development and human rights, together with peace and security, form three pillars on which the United Nations area is built. More than ever, these three pillars are under threat, fueled by 120 armed conflicts worldwide. All this negatively affects the enjoyment of human rights, as well as the development of affected communities. Russian aggression against Ukraine is a clear example of obvious disregard of the UN Charter. Marking its 3rd anniversary, we see the cracks that war has left in the UN foundations. At the same time, the UN Charter upholds states' right to individual or collective self-defense in response to aggression. Croatia remains committed to supporting Ukraine in every aspect, bilaterally, internationally, raising its voice against the aggression. Numerous reports show that rules of international humanitarian law are often not respected. There is no place for torture in human civilization, yet there is credible evidence of torture of civilians and civilian detainees, prisoners of war, kidnapped children and others. The Human Rights Council has a role to play in ensuring accountability for grave violations of international humanitarian law, especially in situations in which the Security Council is blocked. Mr. President, last year brought new opportunities and challenging for people in Syria who were caught in one of the longest recent conflicts. Systematic violations of women's and girls' rights in Afghanistan will have a damaging effect on personal freedoms and long-term development of the country. Brutal repression of civil and political rights, combined with strict control of the media in countries such as Belarus and Russia, shows that authorities fear democracy and opposition. The recent special session on the Democratic Republic of the Congo has relieved horrifying levels of brutality towards civilians, including horrendous levels of sexual violence, demanding accountability for the perpetrators. We welcome the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and hope it will lead to the release of all remaining hostages held in Gaza. We acknowledge the important role of the International Committee of the Red Cross has played in the hostage release. Mr. President, due to the aggression against my country in the 90s, Croatia has had decades of experience in clearing landmines. Assisting affected countries and helping them in clearing landmines has been one of the cornerstones of our humanitarian efforts. We believe that human rights and humanitarian obligations of states should be part of the policies addressing the presence of mines, including through the implementation of the relevant international instruments. We are pleased to have joint efforts with our cross-regional partners in presenting a new resolution on the impact of landmines on human rights. Mr. President, Croatia is still searching for 1,782 missing persons vanished during the homeland war in the 90s. My country remains committed to find out their fate and whereabouts and strongly invites the other sides to enable access to the archives that could reveal their fate. Croatia is committed to the humanitarian nature of the issue of missing persons. Our efforts have been recognized within the Global Alliance for the Missing. We will continue to serve as devoted co-chairs along with Switzerland for the next 2 years. We are looking forward to the Universal Periodic Review later this year. We shall continue our work within the Human Rights Council and beyond on the universal promotion of these rights for all. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Jordan. And now I give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Noura bint Mohammed Al-Kawi, Minister of State at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the United Arab Emirates.
السيدات والسادة، يسرني أن أهنئكم على توليكم رئاسة مجلس حقوق الإنسان، وكل ثقة أنكم ستقودون أعمال المجلس بنجاح. ولا يفوتني أن أتقدم بالشكر لسلفكم سعادة السفير عمر زنبير على جهوده القيمة في إدارة أعمال المجلس، كما نثمن الدور الهام الذي يطلع به مكتب المفوضية السامية لحقوق الإنسان. السيد نائب الرئيس، أن دولة الإمارات ملتزمة التزاما راسخا بتعزيز وحماية حقوق الإنسان، وينعكس ذلك جليا في الجهود التي تبذلها لتطوير تشريعاتها وسياساتها من خلال البرامج والمبادرات التي تساهم في النهوض والرقي بحقوق الإنسان، حيث تحتضن الدولة أكثر من 200 جنسية يعيشون في سلام ووئام في ظل مجتمع متسامح ونظام قضائي كفؤ وعادل. وقد كان عام 2024 حافلا بالعديد من التشريعات والقوانين التي تواكب التنوع السكاني الكبير في الدولة. فعلى الصعيد التشريعي اعتمدت الدولة تعديلات بشأن الأحوال الشخصية التي توفر إطارا قانونيا شاملا ومتكاملا لتنظيم مسائل الأحوال الشخصية، بالإضافة لإصدار قوانين اتحادية بشأن تنظيم المؤسسات العقابية في الدولة وبشأن الدعم والتمكين الاجتماعي. وتتصدر حماية الأسرة وتعزيز مكتسباتها سلم الأولويات في جميع السياسات والبرامج الحكومية، انطلاقا من قناعة بأن الأسرة تمثل نواة وطن متسامح وآمن ينعم جميع أفراده بالرفاهية والاستقرار. وفي هذا السياق أصدرت دولة الإمارات قوانين بشأن الحماية من العنف الأسري، وتهدف إلى حماية الأسرة من هذه المخاطر بما يحافظ على كيان الأسرة وترابطها الاجتماعي. ووفق هذا النهج أنشأت الدولة في ديسمبر 2024 وزارة الأسرة كي تعمل على بناء أسرة مستقرة ونشء قادر على البناء والإبداع. أن المجتمع القوي والمستقر يعني وطنا قادرا على تحقيق طموحاته ومواجهة تحدياته والتخطيط السليم للمستقبل، مقولة لصاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله. وفي تجسيد لهذه الرؤية أعلنت دولة الإمارات عن تخصيص عام 2025 ليكون عام المجتمع تحت شعار يدا بيد نحو مجتمع متماسك ومزدهر. كما تواصل دولة الإمارات وبخطى ثابتة جهودها في تمكين المرأة والمساواة بين الجنسين، حيث تتبوأ المرأة في وطن أرفع المناصب وتتواجد في مختلف مواقع القيادة العليا التي تتصل بوضع الاستراتيجيات واتخاذ القرار. وتتويجا لهذه الجهود حصلت دولة الإمارات على المرتبة 7 عالميا والأولى إقليميا في مؤشر المساواة بين الجنسين لعام 2024 الصادر عن برنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي. السيد نائب الرئيس، يشكل التسامح أحد المبادئ التي رسختها قيادتنا الرشيدة منذ قيام الاتحاد، حيث جعل مؤسس الدولة الشيخ زايد بن سلطان آل نهيان طيب الله ثراه العدل والمساواة والتسامح واحترام الآخر نهجا لا يقتصر على الداخل فحسب، وإنما يحكم علاقات الدولة بالعالم. وفي هذا السياق اعتمد مجلس الأمن قرار تاريخيا رقم 2686 حول التسامح والسلام والأمن الدوليين، اشتركت في صياغته دولة الإمارات، ويقر للمرة الأولى بأن خطاب الكراهية والتطرف يمكن أن يؤدي إلى تفشي هذا الداء وتكرار النزاعات في العالم. السيد نائب الرئيس، تحرص دولة الإمارات على تعزيز تعاونها مع مختلف أجهزة ولجان الأمم المتحدة لحقوق الإنسان، وفي هذا الإطار أطلقت وبشراكة مع مكتب المفوضية السامية لحقوق الإنسان برنامجا تدريبيا يهدف لإعداد كادر وطني متخصص في مجال حقوق الإنسان. وفي منتصف ديسمبر 2024 استضافت الدولة المقررة الخاصة المعنية بالعنف ضد النساء والفتيات في إطار زيارة ميدانية أشادت خلالها بالجهود المبذولة والتقدم المحرز نحو مناهضة العنف ضد النساء والفتيات. كما تفخر دولة الإمارات بشغلها عضوية مجلس حقوق الإنسان ل3 فترات، وإذ تؤمن بالدور الهام الذي يطلع به في حماية هذه الحقوق على الصعيد العالمي، يسرني أن أعلن عن ترشح بلادي لشغل عضوية المجلس للفترة من 2028 إلى 2030، حيث نطلع إلى العمل مع كافة الدول لمعالجة قضايا حقوق الإنسان في جميع أنحاء العالم. السيد نائب الرئيس، تواجه منطقة الشرق الأوسط تحديات كبيرة تتطلب تكثيف الجهود الإقليمية والدولية الداعمة لتحقيق السلام الشامل. نضع نصب عيوننا رعاية الإنسان الذي عانى من الحروب والصراعات السياسية. وفي هذا الإطار نؤكد دولة الإمارات على موقفها التاريخي والثابت والراسخ تجاه صون حقوق الشعب الفلسطيني، وتشدد على ضرورة إيجاد أفق سياسي جاد يفضي إلى حل الصراع الفلسطيني الإسرائيلي وإقامة دولة فلسطينية مستقلة ذات سيادة وعاصمتها القدس الشرقية. توجه دولة الإمارات والأولوية القصوى لديها هي دعم الحلول السياسية المبنية على الحوار وتجنب المواجهات والتصعيد وتعزيز العمل الإغاثي والإنساني لرفع المعاناة عن الشعوب. وفي الختام أؤكد لكم عزم دولة الإمارات على مواصلة جهودها نحو تعزيز وحماية حقوق الإنسان والعمل مع الدول الأخرى ومن خلال الأمم المتحدة للارتقاء بحقوق الإنسان في كافة أنحاء العالم. وشكرا السيد نائب الرئيس.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for a statement. And now I give the floor to Mr. Endrit Aiziraj, Deputy Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of Albania. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to speak at this high-level segment of the 58th session of the Human Rights Council. Allow me also to congratulate Ambassador Lober on his assumption of office as President of the 19th cycle of the Human Rights Council. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted 77 years ago, stands as a remarkable achievement, reflecting shared values of equality, dignity, and justice. Unfortunately, conflict, violence, discrimination, and inequality persists in this world to this day, where people's fundamental rights are constantly violated. Now more than ever, it is crucial to ensure that the principles enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are upheld. The third grim anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing fight for freedom, sovereignty, and the protection of democratic values and fundamental human rights. The human cost of this brutal aggression is staggering. Thousands of lives have been lost, millions have been displaced. Russia's actions have been marked by deliberate attacks on civilian and critical infrastructure, use of torture, extrajudicial executions, arbitrary detentions, sexual and gender-based violence, war crimes, and a blatant violation of international law. At this pivotal moment, Albania praises the resilience and courage demonstrated by Ukrainian people in the face of this relentless aggression. And as a member of the Human Rights Council, we will continue to uphold the principle of accountability as one of its main priorities, together with fighting impunity and preventing further violations of human and fundamental rights. Mr. Vice President, Albania is deeply concerned by the ongoing conflicts and crises affecting various regions across the globe. These situations not only threaten regional stability, but they also result in a widespread violation of human rights. In Afghanistan, the situation of human rights continues to deteriorate. The systematic oppression of women and girls, the shrinking of civic space, and the marginalization of minorities are alarming developments that require immediate international action. In Iran, women and girls continue to be deprived of their fundamental rights and freedoms and are subjected to laws that restrict their autonomy and, most importantly, their dignity. We stand in solidarity with the brave Iranian women and girls as they continue to fight for equality and justice. After decades of suffering, the Syrian people deserve justice, they deserve dignity, and the restoration of their fundamental rights. We all have a crucial role to play in ensuring that the atrocities committed against the Syrian people are punished and that their rights are fully restored, respected, and protected. Other conflicts in many parts of the world, in Gaza, Sudan, South Sudan, Yemen, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, and Haiti, have worsened the already dire humanitarian crisis and led to widespread human rights abuses, with millions of people lacking access to basic necessities, including food, clean water, healthcare, and safety. Mr. Vice President, in a world where human rights violations persist and authoritarianism is on the rise, Albania is convinced that human rights mechanisms, such as the Human Rights Council, special procedures and treaty bodies, along with the vital role of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, are essential tools for safeguarding human rights, ensuring accountability, and promoting justice and equality. At a national level, Albania has taken significant steps to strengthen the protection of human rights and align its legal framework with international standards. We have adopted policies that respect the rights of all individuals, regardless of origin, nationality, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, belief, and other individual differences. Gender equality has been a key priority in recent years, with significant progress in empowering women and girls and placing them at the core of sustainable development. We are equally committed to defending minority rights and promoting social inclusion, while also safeguarding their cultural heritage. We remain steadfast in supporting civil society and human rights defenders, recognizing their critical role in driving positive change across societies. We remain committed to promoting, protecting, and fulfilling the rights of children at home and abroad. Albania will continue to advocate for the protection of refugees, migrants, and stateless persons. We must also ensure that older persons are not left behind. It is our responsibility to ensure that they enjoy the same rights, dignity, and respect for life as everyone else. Mr. Vice President, Albania firmly believes that human rights are the cornerstone of peace, stability, and sustainable development. We will continue to work with all of our partners to ensure that human rights are protected, promoted, and respected all across the globe. Thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency for his statement. And now I give the floor to Her Excellency Esmeralda Mendoza, Secretary of State for External Relations of Angola. Excellency, you have the floor.
Senhor Presidente, Excelências e ilustres representantes dos Estados-membros, é com elevada honra que participo neste debate e reiterar a confiança da República de Angola ao trabalho do Conselho, seus órgãos e mecanismos, num contexto de vários desafios globais que o mundo atualmente enfrenta. A República de Angola permanece alinhada à Declaração Universal dos Direitos Humanos, assim como à Carta Africana dos Direitos Humanos e dos Povos e a todos os compromissos de direitos humanos por si ratificados, e tem a sua Constituição assente na defesa dos direitos e liberdades fundamentais e na consolidação do Estado Democrático de Direito, na paz e o desenvolvimento sustentável. O governo angolano participa regularmente das sessões do Conselho de Direitos Humanos, da ONU, tendo sido por 3 ocasiões membro e permanece comprometido com a cooperação contínua com os procedimentos especiais do Conselho de Direitos Humanos, assegurando uma resposta positiva às visitas dos relatores e reforçando o seu compromisso com a transparência e proteção dos direitos humanos. A título de exemplo, destacamos a visita que a perita independente sobre os efeitos da dívida externa efetuou a Angola em maio de 2024, cuja apresentação do relatório decorre durante os trabalhos da presente sessão do Conselho. O ano de 2025 é muito especial para Angola pelo facto de assumirmos a presidência pro tempore da União Africana e comemorarmos 50 anos da independência nacional. Recordo as palavras do secretário-geral António Guterres, há exatamente um ano atrás, neste mesmo Conselho, sobre a relação intrínseca entre os direitos humanos e a paz, ao declarar que os direitos humanos são a base da paz e que o caminho para a paz começa com o pleno respeito por todos os direitos humanos e com a construção de uma cultura de direitos humanos, evocamos estas linhas para realçar a nossa atuação junto da União Africana, em que assumimos a presidência. A quando a sua assunção como Presidente da União Africana, Sua Excelência Presidente João Gonçalves Lourenço declarou atribuir uma importância central às questões da paz e segurança, que constituem os principais pressupostos das aspirações da Agenda 2063 da União Africana e do programa que estabelece o silenciar das armas até 2030, com vista a transformar a África numa região pacífica, segura, confiante num futuro promissor e de prosperidade para todos os africanos e colocar o continente na rota do desenvolvimento. Neste contexto, Angola encoraja as Nações Unidas, bem como os seus membros e órgãos, inclusive o Conselho dos Direitos Humanos, a conjugarem esforços para a efetivação do desenvolvimento da paz e dos direitos humanos em África e em todas as regiões do mundo. Senhor Presidente, com o início do ciclo político liderado pelo Presidente João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, os direitos humanos assumiram outra dimensão e atenção, tendo resultado na melhoria significativa da situação geral dos direitos humanos. Em 23 de janeiro de 2025, Angola participou no 4º ciclo da Revisão Periódica Universal e recebeu diversas recomendações dos Estados-membros, abrangendo áreas cruciais como a saúde, educação e proteção de grupos vulneráveis. Muitas das recomendações recebidas estão em linha com o Plano Nacional de Desenvolvimento 2023-2027, os programas e prioridades nacionais concebidos para reforçar o Estado de Direito, as instituições e a melhoria dos índices de desenvolvimento humano, a educação para os direitos humanos, a participação e a igualdade e a transparência e o combate à corrupção. Durante o diálogo interativo, Angola enfatizou o compromisso do país com os princípios universais de direitos humanos e a implementação de políticas que consolidam o progresso em áreas prioritárias. Entre os principais marcos, destacamos a ratificação de tratados internacionais, como a Convenção contra a Tortura, a Convenção Internacional sobre a Eliminação de Todas as Formas de Discriminação Racial e a Convenção das Pessoas com Deficiência, além de esforços para adesão a novos instrumentos jurídicos. Neste contexto, aproveitamos essa oportunidade para agradecer ao Grupo de Trabalho e aos seus Estados-membros que construtivamente efetuaram recomendações a Angola e consideram os relatores apresentados. Senhor Presidente, nos últimos anos, Angola implementou reformas jurídicas e institucionais voltadas à celeridade e acessibilidade da justiça, como a criação de 39 tribunais de comarca, investiu no aumento significativo de magistrados e advogados e a ampliação da assistência jurídica gratuita e adotou o Código Penal angolano, que reforça o combate à discriminação, à violência de género e tortura, além de prever mecanismos de responsabilização para violações dos direitos fundamentais. No âmbito social, Angola prioriza a erradicação da pobreza e a promoção de desenvolvimento sustentável, investindo 30% do orçamento geral do Estado no setor social. Programas como o Quenda, que tem beneficiado mais de 1 milhão de famílias em situação de vulnerabilidade, e o Plano Integrado de Intervenção nos municípios, que resultou em melhorias significativas em infraestruturas de saúde e educação. Relativamente ao setor da educação, entre 2017 e 2023 foram construídas e reabilitadas centenas de escolas. O governo angolano prometeu iniciativas para combater o abandono escolar, com ênfase na inclusão de crianças e jovens em situação de fragilidade, especialmente meninas, e na ampliação de programas como merenda escolar, bolsas de estudo para jovens. No setor da saúde, entre 2017 e 2023, foram construídas e reabilitadas 629 unidades sanitárias. O aumento no acesso aos cuidados primários resultou em avanços significativos, como a redução da mortalidade infantil e materna, além da expansão da rede de unidades sanitárias e da formação de profissionais de saúde. Quanto aos refugiados, Angola acolhe mais de 52 mil refugiados sob proteção internacional, assegurando o seu acesso a serviços básicos, incluindo educação, assistência médica e implementação do registro biométrico para garantir os seus direitos. Essas ações demonstram o compromisso de Angola em promover o bem-estar social e a inclusão dos refugiados, aliando-se aos padrões internacionais de direitos humanos. Angola entende que colocar o respeito pelos direitos humanos no centro das políticas públicas é a melhor forma de garantir o bem-estar comum de todos os cidadãos. Para terminar, reafirmamos o nosso compromisso com o Conselho de Direitos Humanos e o Alto Comissariado das Nações Unidas para os Direitos Humanos, bem como a Agenda de Desenvolvimento 2030 das Nações e a promoção e proteção dos direitos humanos a nível interno e externo, de acordo com os padrões internacionais. Muito obrigada, Sr. Presidente.
I thank Her Excellency for her statement. And now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Alejandro Solano Ortiz, Vice Minister of Multilateral Affairs of Costa Rica.
Señor Presidente, señor Alto Comisionado, Excelencias, amigos, atravesamos una época de profunda agitación geopolítica. Las democracias, imperfectas como somos, estamos llamadas a actuar, a liderar en la defensa de la paz y a recordar el papel fundamental del multilateralismo y del derecho internacional que garantiza el respeto por los derechos humanos. El autoritarismo pareciera estar ganando terreno a nivel mundial. Es alarmante como algunos intentan maquillarse de democracia, instrumentalizando los poderes judiciales y legislativos para socavar el respeto por los derechos humanos y el Estado de Derecho. Los tiranos se aferran al poder, impunes y con la complicidad de otros estados y de algunas instituciones financieras internacionales. Estas dictaduras clausuran universidades y medios de comunicación, o bien los toman para usarlos como instrumentos de propaganda. Muchos opositores, periodistas, artistas y defensores de derechos humanos son forzados al exilio y arbitrariamente se les priva de la nacionalidad y se les confiscan sus bienes. Presenciamos conflictos armados y anexiones territoriales ilegítimas, masacres de civiles por grupos extremistas y denuncias de crímenes contra la humanidad perpetrados por Estados miembros de la ONU, en ocasiones en colaboración con mercenarios. Se multiplican las violaciones sistemáticas de derechos humanos, los golpes de Estado y la reducción de espacios democráticos. Todo ello exacerbado por la desinformación, las noticias falsas y la triple crisis planetaria de pérdida de biodiversidad, cambio climático y contaminación. Sin embargo, en este clima de creciente división, debemos aprovechar para reafirmar los ideales fundacionales de nuestro sistema internacional. Es crucial promover más espacios de diálogo y de entendimiento, priorizando siempre al ser humano y los valores universales de no discriminación e igualdad. Los derechos humanos deben ser la referencia para avanzar, para lograr un desarrollo sostenible tangible. Las políticas públicas, las iniciativas regionales de cooperación, los nuevos tratados internacionales que se negocian en diversas materias deberán siempre estar guiados por un enfoque basado en los derechos humanos como un piso mínimo del compromiso y acuerdo que oriente su ejecución. Nunca es un buen momento para escondernos, y menos cuando el multilateralismo está siendo objeto de ataques. Es el momento para comunicarnos, para generar más encuentros de discusión, abiertos, transparentes y con la participación de la diversidad de actores. Señor Presidente, cada Estado ha asumido sus compromisos de derechos humanos de manera absolutamente soberana y voluntaria, ya sea acogiendo la Declaración Universal y la Declaración de Viena, o bien mediante la ratificación de los diversos instrumentos internacionales. Costa Rica hoy se permite recordar en este foro que en el derecho de los tratados existe un principio clave: los pactos son para cumplirlos, pacta sunt servanda. Es una máxima que además aplicamos a diario en nuestro quehacer diplomático: el valor de la palabra y, si se quiere, del papel. Debe haber coherencia entre los compromisos asumidos y las acciones que se realizan en el terreno. Respetar las obligaciones del derecho internacional de los derechos humanos y el derecho internacional humanitario no es una opción, es un imperativo adquirido soberanamente por cada Estado ante la comunidad internacional y que lo obliga frente a todas las personas en su territorio. Costa Rica insta a todos los miembros y observadores de este Consejo no solo a hablar de derechos humanos, sino a actuar en consecuencia, a respetar no solo los instrumentos internacionales, sino también los regionales. Mi país hace un llamado a redoblar esfuerzos conjuntos para proteger y promover los derechos humanos de todas las personas, y esto empieza en esta sala de negociaciones. Seré muy franco, señor presidente. La membresía de este Consejo es un asunto de enorme privilegio, pero también de gran responsabilidad. Los miembros debemos ser más activos, más participativos y más transparentes. Se hará un irrespeto a este foro, pero sobre todo a las personas en el terreno, a las víctimas de violaciones y abusos de los derechos humanos, que un Estado permanezca pasivo durante su membresía. Todos estamos llamados a actuar, a aprender y tomar posición. En especial, como Estados miembros, la universalidad de los derechos humanos nos llama a ignorar discursos nacionalistas y regionalistas mal concebidos y asumir la responsabilidad de cumplir con el mandato de este Consejo, en todo momento y en cualquier parte del mundo donde se transgredan los derechos humanos. Esta es la valentía que se necesita para multiplicar el ya demostrado poder transformador de este Consejo. El mundo hoy nos demanda proactividad, compromiso y consecuencia con nuestras obligaciones. Como señaló la activista haitiana Jean Dominique, no se puede matar la verdad, no se puede matar la justicia, no se puede matar aquello por lo que luchamos cada día. Muchas gracias.
I thank His Excellency for his statement. And now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Caspar Veldkamp, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, by video message.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the world is in turmoil and the protection of universal human rights is under threat. In recent years, freedom of expression and freedom of religion have continued to decline. More journalists were killed in 2024 than in any previous year. And we're all aware of the deplorable humanitarian situation in Ukraine, Sudan, Eastern Congo, Gaza, Myanmar, and other places. Yesterday, we marked the grim 3-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And the question we must ask ourselves is, what can we do to improve this situation? What can we do to support a detained Russian journalist, an oppressed Belarusian human rights activist, a Christian held in North Korean detention? The Human Rights Council is a forum for multilateral dialogue, but we don't gather 3 times a year in Geneva just to make strong statements. It is our collective duty in this Council to uphold and defend the hard-won norms of international human rights and to make sure that these norms are respected, especially in turbulent times. Excellencies, there can be no peace without justice. And this is why we work tirelessly to restore justice for Ukraine, together with many of you. There can be no impunity for blatant aggression. Victims of Russian aggression deserve compensation. The Netherlands is also firmly committed to achieving justice for the victims of ISIS, like the Yazidi people of Syria and Iraq. We're investigating the establishment of an international tribunal so that the crimes against them do not go unpunished. And the promotion and protection of human rights also requires a strong office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. High Commissioner, we share your concerns about the UN's liquidity crisis and its impact on the UN human rights pillar. And I would like to reiterate your call for more states to give your office their full support. The Netherlands values strengthening your office in its field presences, which is why we have committed additional funds to support human rights monitoring in the Palestinian territories, in Sudan and Ukraine. When it comes to human rights, my country is obviously not beyond criticism. We all need an independent perspective to see where things need to be improved. And that's why we continue to advocate for civil society organizations to engage with the Human Rights Council. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our commitment to human rights is not a hopeless endeavor. There are signs of hope, like in Syria, where an opportunity for a more peaceful and inclusive society exists. Across the world, people are demanding universal human rights, and we have a responsibility to strengthen their voices. Please be assured that the Netherlands remains your partner in promoting and protecting human rights. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency for the statement. Now I give the floor to Ms. Mirjana Spoljaric Egger, President of the International Committee of the Red Cross.
Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Today, violations that were once considered abhorrent have disturbingly become normalized in conflicts around the world. I stand before you to remind us of an undeniable truth. Every patient killed in a hospital bed, every family buried under the rubble of their home, every hostage stolen from their loved ones, and every prisoner tortured and deprived of basic dignity. Every city leveled and every village destroyed. These are not unfortunate realities of war. They are a betrayal. We must not become numb to the fact or that fact, or we risk sleepwalking into a world where the barriers that once restrained brutality in war are removed. The scale of suffering we witness is not inevitable. It is the direct result of dismissive interpretations of international humanitarian law. But people have the power to change course. It will require, though, courage and leadership to move past political divisions and recommit to the fundamental belief that human life must transcend political divides, both in war and in peacetime. Excellencies, together, international humanitarian law and international human rights law share a common goal: to protect human life, health and dignity, no matter what country you were born in or what side of the front line you live on. These bodies of law are mutually reinforcing. They need one another. The erosion of respect for one contributes to the erosion of the other. In war, how can the right to health be fulfilled if hospitals are bombed? How can the right to food prevent hunger if crops are destroyed? How can children see their right to education come true if schools are attacked? There's no right to life when civilians and the infrastructure that they rely on for survival are systematically targeted. International humanitarian law exists to protect them in times of war. The way wars are fought today will inform the way they are fought tomorrow. Where basic humanitarian rules are violated, rebuilding costs skyrocket and new security threats arise. We can choose a different path, one that promotes life, stability and prosperity. This starts with committing to international humanitarian law and making it a political priority. The ICRC, together with Brazil, China, France, Jordan, Kazakhstan and South Africa, in September launched a global initiative to revive political commitment to international humanitarian law. Many states have since joined, and I hope that many more will continue to do so. Mr. Vice President, at this time of tectonic political shifts, the pressure for humanitarian organizations to pick a side is at a fever pitch. We, as the ICRC, will not bend to it. If we did, we would lose our ability to help people on all sides in the world's most contentious theatres of armed conflict. States do not need to be neutral, but they need the ICRC to fulfill the role. A neutral humanitarian body is a vital feature of the international peace architecture, and without which the entire system is weaker. It is by upholding our strict impartiality and confidentiality that we ensure our ability to stand for humanity. I thank you.
We thank the President of the International Committee of the Red Cross for her statements. And now we give the floor to Mr. Alain Berset, Secretary General of the Council of Europe. Vous avez la parole.
Monsieur le Vice-président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je crois qu'aujourd'hui nous pouvons nous demander ensemble, nous rappeler pourquoi nous existons. Pourquoi est-ce que les Nations Unies ont vu le jour il y a 80 ans? Pourquoi et comment le Conseil de l'Europe, l'institution que je représente ici, souffle un vent de liberté, un vent de justice avec la Convention européenne des droits de l'homme depuis 75 ans? Eh bien, c'est parce que c'est dans la paix, ou formulé autrement dans le refus de vivre la guerre, que nous trouvons nos origines conjointes. Et maintenant, pourtant, la guerre sévit à nouveau, même sur le sol européen, en Ukraine, depuis 3 ans. Et le Conseil de l'Europe a fait du soutien à l'Ukraine sa priorité. Nous nous sommes engagés autour de 3 axes d'action qui, tous les 3, sont fondamentalement ancrés dans la défense des droits humains. D'une part, la justice, que l'impunité ne l'emporte pas pour toutes les violations de droits humains qui ont été perpétrées. Deuxièmement, la protection des enfants ukrainiens. Et troisième élément, la reconstruction du pays. Et le principe dans tout ça est clair. Le principe d'action est très clair, c'est non à l'impunité. Ces dernières semaines, nous avons pu réaliser des progrès importants pour la mise en place d'une commission des réclamations fondée sur le registre des dommages, ainsi que pour la création d'un tribunal spécial pour le crime d'agression. Et je viens, c'était aussi une des priorités, de nommer une envoyée spéciale pour la situation des enfants d'Ukraine. Alors maintenant, Monsieur le Vice-président, Excellences, j'aimerais poser devant vous la thèse suivante. Il n'y a pas de protection efficace et stable des droits humains sans un état de droit qui fonctionne. Il n'y a pas d'état de droit stable et accepté et qui fonctionne sans une démocratie qui fonctionne. Et il n'y a pas de démocratie sans un investissement massif dans l'éducation et sans que toutes et tous acceptent de jouer dans les règles du jeu démocratique. Je dis cela parce que je crois que fondamentalement, la démocratie est essentielle pour avoir une défense stable et efficace des droits humains. Et en même temps, partout dans le monde, y compris en Europe, eh bien, nous constatons que la sauvegarde de la démocratie est un combat quotidien. C'est l'un des grands chantiers auxquels nous devons nous attacher. Nous devons rénover le pacte démocratique, pas juste regarder les choses nous filer entre les doigts. Et c'est pour ça que j'ai lancé un grand projet de renouvellement du pacte démocratique avec l'éducation qui en est le cœur et le moteur. Nous avons engagé des actions dans ce sens pour contrer les reculs démocratiques, pour contrer les montées d'autoritarisme et de populisme, ainsi que tout ce qui menace par ailleurs la démocratie et nos sociétés démocratiques, notamment au travers de la désinformation. Pour défendre les droits humains, nous avons besoin de conditions. Et ces conditions, eh bien, ce n'est pas d'accepter de vivre dans un monde qui soit dominé par la force, la violence, le rapport de force et l'impunité. Alors que, le rappelait le secrétaire général des Nations Unies en septembre dernier à New York, le niveau d'impunité dans le monde dans lequel nous vivons aujourd'hui n'a jamais été aussi élevé depuis des dizaines d'années. Ce n'est pas ce monde-là que nous voulons. Nous devons tout faire ensemble pour vivre dans un monde dans lequel les relations entre États sont fondées sur le droit, dans lequel les relations sont prévisibles, dans lequel l'environnement de paix peut être créé et poursuivi et que chacun soit redevable de ses actes, en particulier dans les cas où il y a des violations de droits humains. Pour conclure, Monsieur le Vice-président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous devrons ensemble saisir cette situation aujourd'hui. Que se passe-t-il aujourd'hui? Parfois, durant des décennies, il ne se passe rien. Et tout à coup, pendant une semaine, il se passe des décennies. Ce moment, c'est maintenant. Et nous devons le saisir pour construire ensemble un monde plus juste, plus sûr, plus durable, et dans un monde en pleine mutation, revenir aux fondamentaux. Et les fondamentaux, ce sont les droits humains, la défense des droits humains. C'est la défense de l'état de droit. C'est la défense de la démocratie. Nous devons le faire ensemble. Il y a des alternatives au multilatéralisme. Elles existent, mais elles sont toutes très mauvaises. Merci de votre attention.
Nous remercions son Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire général du Conseil de l'Europe, pour son allocution. Nous allons maintenant écouter son Excellence, Monsieur Zacharias Aliano da Costa, Executive Secretary of the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries.
Senhor Vice-Presidente, Excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, é uma honra dirigir-me a este respeitável Conselho num momento determinante para a proteção e promoção dos direitos humanos em todo o mundo. Os princípios de universalidade, indivisibilidade e interdependência dos direitos humanos têm sido crescentemente objeto de constantes questionamentos e ameaças. Conflitos armados, discriminação, perseguição e desigualdade social, alterações climáticas e crises humanitárias têm imposto um grande ónus sobre os mais vulneráveis e são fatores que têm contribuído para o aumento da ameaça que paira sobre os princípios que alicerçam a Declaração Universal dos Direitos Humanos. Por isso, em tempos de desafios globais sem precedentes, a nossa responsabilidade coletiva de garantir a dignidade e os direitos fundamentais de todas as pessoas é mais urgente que nunca. É nossa responsabilidade, enquanto membros da comunidade internacional, reafirmar o nosso compromisso inabalável com a defesa dos direitos humanos, sem relativizações ou concessões. Senhor Vice-Presidente, Excelências, a Comunidade dos Países de Língua Portuguesa, CPLP, tem demonstrado a sua dedicação quanto à promoção dos direitos humanos, reforçando a cooperação multilateral e fomentando iniciativas que visam fortalecer o desenvolvimento sustentável, a justiça social e a equidade. A importância fundamental dos direitos humanos e o seu primado são um princípio que está inscrito de forma inequívoca na nossa Declaração Constitutiva e nos nossos estatutos, refletindo o compromisso de todos os nossos Estados com a dignidade e o respeito pelos direitos dos indivíduos. A CPLP tem se esforçado para garantir que a paz, o multilateralismo e o respeito pelos direitos humanos sejam promovidos ativamente em suas ações. Com o objetivo de fortalecer ainda mais a nossa cooperação, a CPLP tem trabalhado para melhorar a capacitação dos nossos Estados-membros com o apoio do Sistema das Nações Unidas, no sentido de aprimorar a apresentação de relatórios aos mecanismos dos tratados internacionais de direitos humanos, incluindo a revisão periódica universal. Por outro lado, o compromisso integral da CPLP com a abolição da pena de morte e a criação de uma rede interministerial de direitos humanos são exemplos concretos desse empenho. Esta rede foi criada com o propósito de aprofundar ainda mais a temática dos direitos humanos no espaço da CPLP e promover um trabalho colaborativo mais robusto. Esperamos contar com o apoio e cooperação do Alto Comissariado das Nações Unidas para garantir a melhor estruturação e operacionalização desta rede e o seu sucesso. Excelências, na CPLP temos sido muito sensíveis à emergência climática que enfrentamos e que afeta diretamente os direitos fundamentais das nossas populações. A presidência em exercício da CPLP, que tem como tema juventude e sustentabilidade, reflete nossa responsabilidade enquanto cidadãos, decisores e governantes com o combate às alterações climáticas, à perda da biodiversidade e à degradação ambiental, que representam uma ameaça existencial não apenas para as gerações futuras, mas também para as atuais. Este Conselho tem um papel fundamental em assegurar que nenhum direito seja tratado como secundário e que nenhuma violação permaneça impune. É com este espírito de urgência e compromisso que a CPLP está a promover um debate interno sobre o reconhecimento do conceito de clima estável como um objeto jurídico no direito internacional. Acreditamos que essa reflexão é inovadora e queremos incluir nela outros parceiros de desenvolvimento para que juntos possamos enfrentar os desafios que nos esperam. Senhor Vice-Presidente, Excelências, em nome dos valores e ideais que procuram relativizar as conquistas e os avanços que conseguimos até aqui, assistimos diariamente ao respeito e à violação das liberdades mais fundamentais. Em face disso, a CPLP une-se àqueles que alertam para o facto dos direitos humanos estarem efetivamente em perigo. Por isso, celebramos e apoiamos o trabalho deste Conselho, que tem sido incansável na denúncia e no alerta constante sobre as violações que persistem em várias partes do mundo. Agradeço a todos aqueles que, de forma incansável, trabalham diariamente pela defesa dos direitos humanos e que se encontram comprometidos com um futuro mais justo para todos. Com o vosso exemplo inspirador, vamos continuar a transcender discursos e conseguir avançar com políticas concretas, comprometidas e eficazes. Muito obrigado.
Nous remercions Son Excellence pour son allocution. Excellence, distingués collègues, c'était le dernier orateur sur ma liste pour cette réunion. Nous nous retrouvons demain à 10 heures pour poursuivre le segment de haut niveau. Je déclare donc close la 5e séance de la 58e session du Conseil des droits de l'homme.
Well done, well done. Before of time and we're ahead. Yes, yes, yes.
It's done.